This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. You can always follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. Before we get into today's episode of the Abbotts, I want to remind you, as you get in the new year, be sure to check out the entertainment book. It's a great way to save money on things that you're going to get anyway, whether it's groceries or dry cleaning, beauty services, or automotive. It has a wide variety of different discounts for merchants in your area. Go to entertainment.greatdetectives.net to learn more. Well, today's episode of The Abbotts is called The Rickshaw-Red Lipstick.
After all, if your husband is chasing a murderer, well, it doesn't look very nice for him to have his face smeared with lipstick, now does it? Especially if it's another woman's lipstick.
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, the nationally popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. Pat and Jean are brought to you each week at this time by NBC, inviting you to join them for another recorded adventure in romance and crime. And here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder, a story entitled The Rickshaw-Red Lipstick.
Very much against Pat's wishes, I went down to the San Francisco waterfront with him. Even though we live in the town, he usually forbids my going there. We went to a dilly of a place. It was a rough-and-tumble bar and cabaret for longshoremen. We'd gone there to look for an old friend of Pat's, Frank Svensson, a retired sea captain who owned the property. You see Mr. Svensson anywhere, Pat?
No. I can't understand what's become of him, Jean. Last week when he phoned me, he sounded very worried.
Sell the lady's fortune? Would the lady want to know the secrets that lie in the cards?
No, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Jean, darling, in case you haven't heard, fortune-telling is a lot of malarkey.
Oh, but that's where you're wrong, sir. If Madame will try, you shall see how accurate my predictions are. It is only $1.
It's a fake, Jean. The whole thing is a fake.
But, sir...
Look, never mind the fortune. Just tell me something. Is Frank Svensson around?
Swenson?
Yes, he owns the property here.
I am sorry. I've never heard of him. Oh, Madame. Very interesting. Ilona sees you have a fascinating palm. Now, if Madame would
What do you see, Ilona?
I see many handsome men.
Oh,
you do?
Of course, they are dim in the past.
Maybe you'd better skip the past, Ilona.
I should say not. Let's hear about it. I didn't know you had a lot of men in your past, dear.
Oh, there's one in particular. A continental type.
Oh, there is?
Oh, you was very important in your past, madame.
Well, just skip it, will you? A lot of this fortune-telling is, malarkey.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Well, I'll have you know that these fortune-tellers are very accurate sometimes. Now, go ahead, Ilona.
Madame was dancing with this man, some years ago.
Ilona, maybe you'd better tell my fortune from the cards, Never mind the past?
Oh, not on your life. A continental type, huh? With oil in his hair, maybe? And a little mustache?
Pat, I did know a few men before I met you. But what of it?
Aha! This line in the palm, the love line. It turns toward this man in your past. You saw him many times, and then
That
one night...
will do, Ilona. Thank you. That's all. The end. Cut.
No. Go on, Ilona. Take a real good look at her hand, and then tell me.
Yes, Mr...
Abbott. Pat Abbott. This is my wife, Jean. Now, tell me,
yes?
what happened that one night with that broken-down Romeo?
He was not broken down, and he was not a Romeo.
Well, that night, the palm tells me that they...
Thank you, Ilona. That's fine. I'm so sorry you finished. Pay her, Pat.
Oh.
Pat, please.
Okay. Here you are, Ilona.
$5?
Yes, it was worth it.
Oh, you are so sweet. For that, Ilona kissed you.
Hey,
thank you. Muchas gracias.
I have suddenly developed a violent dislike for that woman.
Well, why? I think she was very interesting. The palm is so fascinating.
Wipe that lipstick off your face and stop grinning.
She couldn't help kissing me, Jean. I affect women that way. Hey, look at my handkerchief. What color is that lipstick she has?
Oh, it's a new shade, Pat. It has purple in it. That's why it looks so funny.
Oh.
It's called Rickshaw-Red.
Makes me seasick.
Pat, there's a fight over at the bar.
Well, sit tight, dear. Be prepared to duck.
One of them's awfully young, Pat, isn't he? Looks like he's about 19. He shouldn't start anything with that big fellow who's talking to him. He'll get his jaw broken.
Don't worry, Jean. That kid can handle himself.
Well, he doesn't look that way to me.
Throwing a chair. Keep behind this table, Jean.
Pat, the big fellow will kill that young boy. Pat, they have guns. Stop them.
No, it's too late. Keep down, Jean.
Pat, the boy killed him. He shot the big fellow.
Oh, no, he didn't. The kid had a gun, all right, but if you look at that big lug's body lying there in the sawdust, you'll see he didn't die of bullets. There's a knife in his back, Jean. While they were making fireworks with the gun, somebody in this place tossed a knife into that big boy on the floor.
The boy, Pat, he's coming over here.
Please, help me. I gotta get out of here.
Huh?
They'll hold me for the cops. Look, I didn't kill him. Someone threw a knife. That's what killed him. I just aimed for his arm. You've got to believe me.
All right. Come on. While this crowd's running around, maybe we can duck out the back door.
It's this way. Please help me. Stay with me. Someone's got to listen to me. Down at Pier 7, we've got to stop that boat.
What boat? What's wrong?
I'll tell you on the way. We can stop them if you're game.
Game?
Yes. You see, they're liable to kill anyone who steps on board.
The young boy stood there in the smoky barroom with the crowd milling around. Blood was streaming from his mouth where the big fellow smashed him with his fist. He was hysterical. Pat grabbed him with one arm and me with the other. Then he practically carried us out of there past the dead body lying in the sawdust, through the back door and into a cobblestone alley. As we ran toward the docks, the boy calmed down.
Pier 7 is this way, Mr. Abbott.
You know my name. I don't know yours.
It's Lee. Lee Reynolds. Hurry, we haven't much time.
All right. And what boat are you taking us? What's this all about?
The boat's the Anna Marie. I signed up to sail with her last week. She leaves tonight. She's commissioned to carry food to Europe, registered for a special United Nations cargo.
All right, go on.
Listen, if we're going on board, your wife better wait here. On this ship, they play for keeps.
He's right, Jean.
Well, if you make me stay here on dock, I'll only follow you once you've gone.
Sorry, Lee. She's the stubborn type. Keep talking.
Well, the boat's across the street here, and you... Oh, look out for that trap!
Pat, look out! Pat, are you all right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was awfully close, though.
These dark streets. I'm surprised they don't have more accidents.
That wasn't an accident.
Huh?
Somebody wants to keep us off that boat. What's on that ship?
Well, I don't know exactly. That's why I haven't told the police. It'd take too long to convince them. By that time, they'd sail. But there's something in that hold. There must be something in the hold of that baby. Something very hot. From the minute I got on board, Mr. Abbott, everybody acted kind of screwy. The captain, the steward, everybody. And they won't let me go near the hold.
By the way, who's the big fellow you got into the brawl with?
He was in the crew. I told him that I knew it was a phony cargo of some kind. I threatened to talk. I'm no crook. Well, he blew his top. But I didn't kill him. My shots went wild. Whoever threw that knife killed him.
All right. Where'd you get the gun?
In a hock shop in Chinatown. I knew I'd need one just as soon as I got mixed up in this deal.
Well, you better give it to me. You'll get into more trouble with it.
No.
Hmm?
I want to keep it.
All right, Lee, you can keep it.
There's the ship. It's supposed to be loaded with food packages for European relief.
Well, they haven't got steam up yet. We have some time anyway. All right, what's the setup, Lee? Want to sneak down into the hold?
No, that won't work. They have it watched. I found that out. I think it'd be smarter to go right in and talk to the captain. Look, Mr. Abbott, you're a private detective. You might get an angle. It'd fool them, too. Walking in right to the captain's quarters. They won't suspect us.
Well, that makes sense.
Here's the gangway.
What'll you tell the captain, Lee?
Well, I'll say you're friends of mine. Visiting.
I wish you'd go home, Mrs. Abbott. I don't think this is going to be a very pleasant visit.
I wish you'd be quiet, Mr. Abbott. I wouldn't go home now for anything in the world.
There are the captain's quarters.
Come in.
Excuse me, Captain.
What is it, Lee?
This is Mr. and Mrs. Abbott, friends of mine. I invited them on board for a visit.
I thought I made it clear to you that we don't allow any visitors.
Oh, Captain, I've heard a skipper's usually very proud of his boat. You've a wonderful ship here.
Never mind the charm, Mrs. Abbott. I'd appreciate it if you and your husband would get off the boat.
You have a cargo of food for Europe, they tell me, Captain.
Do they?
Yes, Lee was telling me how glad he was to be on an assignment like this.
You talk too much, Lee. You talk about everything but yourself. Did he tell you he's a jailbird?
No, he didn't.
Well, you should be more careful of the friends you select, Mr. Abbott. Now, if you leave, I told you I won't stand for no visitors. Or shall I have the crew escort you off?
Okay, Captain. Coming, Gene? Lee? Oh, thanks for your hospitality, Captain.
Get off this ship!
The deck's this way. You want to sneak into the hole now, Mr. Abbott?
No, not now, Lee. I have another problem on my mind. I'm going back to that bar.
To the bar, Pat.
Yes, I want to know what became of Svensson.
Who's he?
A friend of mine. He owned the property where the bar is.
Well, what's that got to do with this boat?
Plenty. If they're working some kind of a racket on this ship, they need a headquarters. A spot near the water. And Svensson, who owned that bar just a block or so from here, has disappeared. Now, that's interesting. I'm going back there and play hide and seek. Now, you wait here, Lee.
But...
You come with me, Gene.
But the ship, it'll sail. And if we could get down into the hole and find out what they've got there, we might be able to stop them.
Well, we'll have to take that chance. Now, you stay on board, Lee. When I come back, I'll stand in the dock and whistle. Like this. You got it?
Right. And I'll whistle the same thing back to you. That means it's okay to come on board. Good luck, Mr. Abbott.
Bye, Lee. Careful, Gene. Watch the gangway going down.
Pat, do you trust Lee?
Why do you say that?
Well, he insisted on keeping his gun. And the captain said he was a jailbird.
Might mean something, yes.
How about the captain himself?
Well, we can't do anything until we find Svensson, darling. He'll clear this up. If he's alive.
We sneaked back through the dark streets. This time, Pat was doubly careful for trucks or any other fake accident. Then, in the bar... A waiter came over to us.
All right, what do you have?
Just a beer, thanks.
Nothing for me.
Okay, one beer.
Just a minute, chum. Seen Frank Svensson around?
I never heard of him.
I'm anxious to know where Svensson is. It'll be worth a lot to me.
Sorry, bud.
Might be worth $10.
No dice, pal.
20?
Look, I got a bad memory. It takes plenty to get it working.
All right, how's 50?
Where is it?
Right here. Now, where's Svensson?
That I don't know. But I can tell you this. I went walking with Svensson the other night. Down by 23rd and Canal. It was very dark, and somebody walloped me over the head. Yeah. I didn't see who it was. I went out cold. When I come to, Svensson was gone. I ain't seen him since. And the new head waiter here told me to stop asking about him if I didn't want to get my head handed to me.
Oh, thanks.
Now, look, I'm telling you this because I like the guy, you understand? It ain't the door, no. I'm the sentimental type.
Sure. There's one more question.
Yeah?
Where's the telephone?
Yeah, by the front door. To the left, you see it?
Okay.
Well, who are you going to call, Pat?
The harbor police.
What?
I want to invite them to go fishing.
Oh, Pat, stop clowning.
I'm serious, Gene. I want them to come fishing with me for a corpse.
In just a moment, Act Two of tonight's mystery, The Rickshaw-Red Lipstick.
What do you know about your government? What, for example, do you know about the work of the Interstate Commerce Commission? Some 75 years ago, there were approximately 150 different time zones in our country, each of which was set up regionally. In order to erase such confusion, the Interstate Commerce Commission was established. It divided the country into 4 standard time zones, so that railroads, planes, buses, and the mail could run on a uniform schedule. The Interstate Commerce Commission also makes rules and regulations for all forms of interstate transportation. It makes certain that railroads, truck lines, barges, and boats are operated safely, charge reasonable rates, and give dependable service. Yes, when it comes to the regulation of national time and the protection of national travel, the Interstate Commerce Commission is always at the service of the American people. That's how your government works.
And now for Act Two of The Adventures of the Abbotts, The Rickshaw-Red Lipstick.
At Pat's request, the harbor police met him at 23rd and Canal with dredging equipment. Their spotlights searched the water, while Pat and I stood on a police boat, idling at the wharf, watching.
I hope my hunch was right. It's got to be right.
They haven't found a thing, Pat.
Well, they will, Gene. Just be patient. Well, that does it. There he is.
That body in the net?
That's Svensson, Gene. Not very presentable, is he?
Oh, it's horrible.
Well, after a dead body's been in the water for some time, it's not a pretty picture. Say, boys, could you put him down over here? I don't want to break up your routine. I just want to get a quick look at him.
Oh. You take a look, Pat. I've seen enough.
It's all right, darling. Turn around. Don't look. Thanks, boys.
That's okay.
I just want to give my old friend Svensson the once-over. Well, looks like he got the usual treatment. Somebody broke his neck and put big rocks in his pockets and tossed him into the drink. Well, this is interesting, these papers.
Tell me what you found, Pat.
Oh, there are letters here, Gene, unsigned, telling Svensson he'd better sell his property or else. At least that's about all I can read. They're soaked. Well, come on, I've got another phone call to make.
Who is it this time? Will you stop talking in riddles?
I'm going to call the license bureau. I want to know who owns that bar now. Who took it over from Svensson. Gee, it's hot here, isn't it?
Take my handkerchief, darling, and wipe your brow.
No, thanks. I've got my own. Ah, that's better. Oh. Yes, Gene, I'm going to phone and ask who owns the bar.
Got any theories about who it is? Lee or the captain?
I think I know who it is, Gene. thanks to the fact that it's very warm tonight.
As usual, my strong, silent husband wouldn't tell me another thing. I begged, I wheedled, I threatened, but it didn't do any good. He wouldn't tell me why the warm weather gave him a tip about who was behind all this. The bureau told him the name of the owner of the bar over the telephone. Of course, he wouldn't tell me that either. He was in one of his reticent moods. Then we stole back to the dock, to Pier 7. It was pitch black. The boat was silhouetted against an enormous yellow moon. The ship seemed deserted. Pat stood on the dock and gave the signal he'd agreed upon with Lee.
Well, here goes, Gene. I hope Lee is all right. I'm going on board.
If you think you're going alone, chum, you...
Easy. Let's get up this gangway.
Pat, can you see anything?
No, not much. Moon is bright, but it's awfully dark here. Look, the number 3 hold door is open. I'm going to jump in. You stay here and tell me if you hear anyone coming.
All right. But be careful, Pat.
I will. Here goes.
What's in there, Pat?
Boxes. Food. Marked by the UN Relief Board. They all look like... Wait, I gotta light a match. I can see better. They're all boxes. Wait a minute, I'll open one.
What's inside?
Hey.
Hurry, Pat, tell me. Tell me.
This box had a red mark on the outside. Some of the others didn't. You know what's in the box?
Darling, what? For goodness sake, stop stalling. What's in that one?
Fountain pens and lipstick. You get it, Gene? They're smuggling stuff into Europe, hidden under the food. Fountain pens, lipsticks. American cigarettes in this one. I have half the boxes in this hold are loaded this way. They could make a fortune in Europe. You know what this stuff is worth over there? They've got those color code marks on about every third box. The new customs wouldn't inspect every single one. Especially if they had a UN stamp on them, which they probably faked.
Come on, Pat. We'll get the harbor police of all the rackets.
No, don't go, Gene.
Well, why not?
Because if we yell now, we'll never find out who is back of this.
But, Pat, you can't just...
Huh?
Someone's coming.
Can you see who it is?
It's the captain.
Good. I'm coming back on deck. Okay. Now duck behind this barrel with me.
What are you going to do?
Take a shot at the captain. I borrowed this .38 from the harbor police.
Pat, are you crazy? You're going to shoot the captain in cold blood? Just like that?
You'll see. Squat down here with me and don't make a sound.
What the devil? Here. Who's there? Who's there?
He's gone, Pat. To the other end of the deck.
It's fine. Now the next step.
You missed, Pat. I'm ashamed of you. You wanted to wing him, didn't you?
No. I wanted to miss. Can you see what he's doing now?
Just his silhouette. He's gone into his cabin, I think.
And that's just where I'm going. Captain and I are going to have a little chat, Gene, about murder. Good evening, Captain.
Abbott, what are you doing here? I thought I told you...
You were a bit rude during our last visit, Captain, but I don't think you should die for it.
Me? Die?
Yes, we learned a lot about you, Captain, but you don't know much about me. I'm a private detective. As I came up the gangplank just now, I heard a pistol shot. Shall I tell you what it was?
What do you know, Abbott?
I know all about the little smuggling deal that's going on. I know that whoever the head of the ring is just took a shot at you.
Ah, you're out of your mind.
A member of your crew was killed tonight in a bar near this dock. Frank Svensson was killed, too, because he wouldn't sell the property where the bar is located. The head of this outfit, Captain, tossed a knife into that seaman and also did away with Svensson. Now you're next.
Go on.
You're next because the boss has decided to take all the dough and leave you out. Does that sound like I'm out of my mind? If it does, take a look at the sleeve of your coat where the bullet grazed it. They won't miss next time, Captain.
We know a lot of odd stories, don't we?
Now, you've got a chance to get off easy. Maybe turn state's evidence. Maybe get out of the rap for murder. You're in it now, Captain. You had knowledge of the crimes. You're an accomplice.
How do I know you're on the level yourself?
Don't you worry about me. Just take my advice. Get to the boss and straighten yourself out. If you don't get to the boss very fast, you're a dead duck. I told you the fireworks were just beginning, didn't I?
All right. You wait here. I'll settle this, so help me, I'll settle it. If that dirty crook is trying to get rid of me, I'll...
Where's he going, Pat?
He's going to speak to the boss. My little trick worked.
Oh?
Come on, Gene, let's follow him. He's going up to the bridge, see? The boss must be up there. Easy now. Let him go up alone. In a second, you'll see who's been running this setup. Let him go up the stairs. That's it. Now, we wait here and listen.
Well, if I stand on tiptoe, I can see who he's talking to.
Go ahead, then. It's Alona, the fortune teller.
Right, Pat. But how did you know?
I'll tell you later. Just listen to them.
She tried to bump me off just now, didn't you? You're standing here giving me the applesauce about how everything is great. And when I walk away from you, you start taking pot shots at me, you rock.
I did not shoot at you. Now shut up and get this boat out of here. They are waiting for the stuff in Lisbon.
This boat ain't going anywhere. Not yet, it ain't. I'm no sucker. You think I'm going to turn my back again and give you another chance to get me out of the way? You got a habit of knocking people off, Alona. You threw Svensson into the river, didn't you?
I got rid of Svensson because he was in my way. I like things to go smoothly, Captain. But since you have decided to shoot your mouth off, I am sorry...
Put down that knife! Don't throw that knife!
Oh! My arm!
Sorry, I had to use this 38 to stop you, Alona.
Abbott!
I wasn't sure how good you were with a knife. You missed Lee at the bar tonight and killed that crewman by mistake. I wouldn't have minded especially if you'd hit the captain here, but you might have missed again and hit me or my wife. You know Jean, I believe.
Oh, don't bother introducing us, Pat. We've met...
Mr. Abbott.
Yes, well, you can relax now, Lee. You seem to have cleared things up a bit. Where were you?
Well, I got frightened waiting out there on deck. I went to look for you.
I see. Now, let's go, Alona. You too, Captain.
All right.
Oh, Alona, I wanted to thank you.
Thank me? For what?
For telling my wife's fortune. For telling me about that second-hand Charles Boyer she was in love with.
He was not second-hand, and he was not like Charles Boyer. He took me driving a few times, and then one night... Oh, it's awfully hot tonight, isn't it? Pat, darling. Before you go to sleep, tell me something.
What?
Well, when they found Svensson's body in the river, you said you knew who was the head of the ring. You said you knew it because it was warm tonight. What did you mean?
Well, it was warm, and I was perspiring, and you offered me your handkerchief. But I used mine instead, remember? And when I did, I saw lipstick on it. Rickshaw-Red lipstick. From the time Alona kissed me after I gave her that $5 tip. Now, that rang the bell. The lipsticks placed in the cases on the ship were Rickshaw-Red. And who was the only person in the whole picture we'd forgotten about? Alona. Of course, I wasn't sure, but then I called headquarters and asked for the name of the new owner of Svensson's bar, and, well, that confirmed it. So, you see, lipstick does have great value.
Well, Alona should have worn the kiss-proof kind, like mine.
Oh, is your lipstick kiss-proof? Really kiss-proof? Doesn't any of it come off when you kiss me?
It's guaranteed.
Jean, darling.
Yes, Pat.
Let's try it and see.
Oh, there. Convinced now?
No, that isn't scientific. Any scientist will tell you the test isn't valid unless it's tried at least 100 times.
Oh, but that would take all night.
Wouldn't it?
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those nationally popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. The cast included Everett Sloan, Lottie Stavisky, and Bob Hastings. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. Next week, same time, same station. Another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts. This is Wayne Howell speaking.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, that ending definitely very reminiscent of how a lot of episodes of The Adventures of the Thin Man ended. I actually, perhaps the most interesting part of this one was the kind of the Armed Forces radio service interesting fact about just the number of time zones. Because we mentioned a few weeks back that there was, at the time, in 1946, a big division in terms of how daylight savings time was applied. But I never realized that there was also a big difference with standard time. One thing that does surprise me is it does seem like this would get kind of complicated with you having time zones where if you could drive in and out or 20 miles up the road, different time zone, and then 30 miles the other way, another time zone. I'm kind of surprised this never got as a plot on a radio program or in any stories I've read of the era. Particularly comedies, it seemed that there would be a lot of opportunities for confusion there. Well, that'll do it for now. Well, before I get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, I do want to let you know about Audible. Audible has more than 80,000 titles available for your listening pleasure. It can be tough to stay up on the latest in books as we're always on the go in today's society, but you can get one book a month plus discounts on any additional purchases when you're an Audible member. To start your free trial, you can get 2 weeks free and also get a free audiobook. Go to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. That's audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. Well, today's episode of Nero Wolfe is called The Case of the Impolite Corpse.
Ladies and gentlemen, that phone bell means adventure. Hello? Hello? The young man answering the phone is Archie Goodwin. And the mountain of a man engaged in deep thought in the oversized armchair is Nero Wolfe.
What was that? Somebody's going to be murdered who has no manners? Well, what do you want Nero Wolfe to do? Teach him manners? Oh. Hold on. Mr. Wolfe.
Yes, Archie?
We've got a prospective client. In case someone she knows gets murdered, she'd like you to do something about it.
Very well. However, advise her.
Yes?
Not to get murdered herself. I never take a corpse for a client.
Greatest detective in the world.
Yes, Archie is so right. He is the greatest detective in the world, and the fattest, and the least energetic. He's Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout, and brought to you over this NBC network in a new series of adventures by Mr. Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight, it's the case of the Impolite corpse. It began on a certain night at 8:40 when Walter Channing, an advertising executive, was dictating in his office to his charming secretary, Brenda Barkley.
Brenda, take a memo.
Yes, Mr. Channing.
This is to be mimeographed and sent to the entire staff.
The entire staff, yes, sir.
Notice, effective at once, 1-hour lunch periods will be strictly enforced. Employees will post time of departure and time of return. Yes, what is it?
Mr. Channing...
Bennett, I'm busy.
But I've got to see you, Mr. Channing. About this afternoon.
This afternoon was unfortunate, Bennett, but it happened.
I lost my temper. I'm sorry.
So am I.
Mr. Channing, I've been with the firm 14 years, and well, because a man blows up once in 14 years...
Mr. Channing's office.
Oh, you've got to reconsider. That's all, Mr. Channing.
I never reconsider, Bennett.
It's your wife.
But, Mr. Channing...
That will be all, Bennett.
It won't be all. You can't wipe out 14 years of a man's life. Even you can't do that, Channing.
It's Mrs. Channing on the phone.
Oh. Hello? You're where? That's in this building. Since when has Dr. Ellis kept evening office hours? I told you there's nothing wrong with you. No, I can't. I don't know when I'll be through. And I don't want you hanging around up here. Well, take a cab or walk. I don't care what you do. What? I can't understand you. What? Goodbye, Doris. Where was I?
Walter.
Yes?
You are going to reconsider about Tom Bennett, aren't you?
Bennett was insolent this afternoon. I won't tolerate insolence. Yes?
Shine, Mr. Channing?
Shine? No. What's he doing down here this time of night?
Half the staff's working overtime. Kelly's an enterprising shoeshine boy. Might have missed someone on his rounds this afternoon. Walter, about Tom Bennett.
Forget Bennett.
Oh, look, you upset the inkwell. Oh.
Quick, blot the stuff.
Yes, of course. Did any spill on you?
Spot of my trouser cuff. Lucky it didn't get on the carpet.
Walter, about Tom Bennett.
I told you to forget Bennett.
All right, Walter, all right.
Though maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you'd be better off to use him as a model.
A model?
If he knows he's not wanted around here, he'll have the self-respect to get out.
Meaning?
Well, you've known for a long time you're not wanted. And you're still here.
How you'd like to fire me.
Denying that would be silly.
I've been with this firm 15 years in January. Employees get a bonus of stock shares after 15 years' service. That's what I'm waiting for, and you know it.
Suppose we get back to that memorandum.
You'd like to get me out before I collect those shares, wouldn't you?
I said let's get on with the memo.
You'd be petty enough to do it, too, if you knew how.
There may be a way.
There isn't, and you know it. I'm too careful. You can't fire me without cause, and I've given you no cause, Walter. Nothing you can possibly dictate one of your vicious little memorandums about.
Don't try my patience too far, Brenda.
Walter, this can't be us talking like this. You and me hating each other.
I find it remarkable there ever was anything between us except hate.
Walter.
I mean it. Look at you. You were flashy when I met you. You're getting flashier. That means cheaper, Brenda.
Stop it.
Too much lipstick? Too much rouge? Hair too bright? Dress too tight? You're trying too hard, Brenda. You're labeling yourself like a sound wagon.
I wonder what it is that stops me from killing you.
Cowardice, of course. Now, when you've stopped sniveling, we'll get on with a memorandum. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Notice. In the interest of economy and efficiency, junior executives will confer in the conference room, not in private offices. Mid-afternoon coffee and personal phone calls and daily shoe shines will be eliminated.
Your name is Barkley, Brenda Barkley. Very well, Miss Barkley. What can I do for you?
Mr. Wolfe, I don't know how to begin.
Well, maybe I can make this easier all around by briefing Mr. Wolfe on the Walter Channing case. Hey, that's funny.
What?
Violet eyes. I always thought they were something the poets made up.
Archie.
Huh? Oh, the Channing case, yes.
One moment. Miss Barkley, look this way, please. To me, an eye is functional object found in mammals, birds, fish, potatoes, and horticulture. Thank you. Go on, Archie.
Walter Channing was the boy wonder of advertising. At 33, executive vice president of Winslow, Hart, and Straightmeyer. Just 24 hours ago, they found him at his desk, shot through the heart.
They? Who is they?
A night porter and a shoe shine boy, is that right?
Yes.
He'd been dead about an hour. The bullet went through Channing, his desk chair, and lodged in the windowsill behind him. Police thought at first it was suicide.
The gun?
38, found it on the floor, 10 feet away. No fingerprints, anyhow, no clear ones.
Seldom are on a gun butt. You say suicide was suspected. Why? The gun was 10 feet from the body.
It was the smudges.
Smudges?
Powder burns. According to the papers, he was sitting at his desk. There were no signs of a struggle. The gun was held against his chest and fired.
But it wasn't suicide, Mr. Wolfe. Walter Channing would never have killed himself.
The police have already decided that, finally, according to the evening papers.
And I presume you, Miss Barkley, are the suspect.
No, not yet.
But you expect to be. That's why you came to me.
When the police talked to her,
Her?
Doris, his wife. I've been Walter Channing's secretary for 8 years. At one time, we thought we were in love.
Mrs. Channing was aware of this?
Yes. Oh, it was a long time ago. It was over. It was finished a long time ago, but she never believed that. Neither did Alan.
Alan who?
Alan Mielik, head of the media department at the agency. We were going to be married when Walter and I... Well,
Decided you were in love. Miss Barkley, who finally decided you were not? You or Mr. Channing?
He did.
I see. Mr. Mielik believes you did not share this change of heart.
Yes. Oh, he's such a fool.
I dare say you fear Mrs. Channing or Mr. Mielik or both will reveal the ill-fated romance.
You know what the papers will make of it, what the police will try to make of it.
Miss Barkley, did you kill Channing?
No. Oh, no, I swear I didn't. Oh, Mr. Wolfe, I didn't.
Please, for heaven's sake, no tears. Archie, put her in a cab.
Yes, sir.
Then come up to the plant room. There are some things I'll want you to execute for me.
Yes, sir.
Women. Bah!
Yes, Mr. Goodwin, I'm Abe Jackson, the night porter. I was working late that night. Mr. Channing, his secretary, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Mielik, and his secretary. About 10:30, I met the shoe shine, Kelly, on Mr. Channing's floor. There was a light burning in Channing's place. We went in to turn it off, Kelly and me, and there he was, sitting at his desk, a hole this big in his chest.
Tell me, Mr. Bennett, did Channing have any enemies in the agency?
Channing was a slave driver, Mr. Goodwin. The girls hated him and men were afraid of him. He'd send out memos like this one around. Here, take a look at it. It's typical. No coffee, no shoe shines, no office conferences. If you want my opinion as one employee out of 150, whoever killed Walter Channing did the rest of us a favor.
You're Amy Long, secretary to Alan Mielik. Now, what can you
I can tell you plenty. How she jilted Mr. Mielik, took up with Mr. Channing, got thrown over by him. I wouldn't go so far as to say Brenda Barkley would murder anyone. But if she did, Walter Channing would be 1A.
Channing get his shoe shined by you?
I called the agency men, sir. You know, it was Jackson and me found him. Everyone else had gone and left himself, poor soul, sitting at his desk, dead.
This specimen, the Manama straight orchid. Beautiful, isn't it, Mrs. Channing? Mr. Mielik?
I could never quite like orchids. They have no smell, you know.
It's pretty all right, but tulips are more in my line, Mr. Wolfe.
Tulips, Mr. Mielik?
I had a stand of emperors this spring.
Emperors, come in, Archie. Emperors, Mr. Mielik?
That's the name of a tulip, Mr. Wolfe.
A peasant flower. I've heard of it, of course. Archie, Mrs. Channing, Mr. Mielik, my assistant, Mr. Goodwin.
Mr. Goodwin. I didn't know you had company.
Mr. Wolfe asked us here to explain why Brenda Barkley is worried.
And you have both agreed to respect her position.
Brenda ought to know I'd never tell the police anything to get her into trouble.
Phooey.
Sir? He said phooey, Mr. Munich, meaning he doubts what you say and does not admit your right to say it.
Archie, Mr. Mielik, you say you would never intentionally inform on Miss Barkley.
Certainly not.
The tongue slips, sir. We would expect you to guard your...
What? Do you think
what
that...
I started to say. You asked us here because Brenda Barkley is your client. I despise Miss Barkley. Everyone knows that, and why. But I wouldn't stoop to implicating her in murder.
You believe her innocent, then, Mrs. Channing?
I believe she lacks the gumption to pull a trigger. Poison, I wouldn't put past her at all. Mr. Mielik, would you be kind enough to see me home?
Of course, Mrs. Channing. Good day, Mr. Wolfe.
Good day.
And Mr. Goodwin.
You have, I suppose, an exhaustive report from me, Archie?
7 pages of notes.
Save them and get me a bottle of beer.
You're in a rosy mood. What happened?
I said I would like a bottle of beer.
No, you wouldn't.
Archie, you better...
Don't puff up about it. Those vest buttons won't stand the strain. I can't get you a bottle of beer.
Why not?
You ordered me to hold you to 4 a day.
I rescind the order.
You also ordered me not to let you rescind the order. What's the matter with you, anyhow?
I have had to entertain 2 very dull people too long.
Both those dull people are prime suspects. Mrs. Channing is a woman scorned. Mielik lost his girl to the guy who was killed.
I can't blame her for throwing him over. Archie, the man grows tulips.
What?
Tulips. Well, give me a report.
I checked the agency, everybody who was working down there the night of the murder. Also, I dropped in on Inspector Kramer at homicide. Also, I visited the morgue.
Why the morgue?
Because if I hadn't, you'd have said, why not the morgue?
Go on.
I drew a blank there. Kramer let me look at the clothes Channing was wearing. There was an ink stain on the left trouser cuff.
An ink stain?
And a hole through his shirt front with plenty of powder smudge like the paper said. He was shot with a .38 at point-blank range, sitting down.
An impolite corpse.
What?
Discourteous. He didn't rise to meet his murderer. That is most significant, Archie.
I know. I've got a theory about this case.
No theories, facts, if you please.
But look, Channing owned a .38. That's a fact. It's disappeared. That's another fact. The murder gun was a .38 with the numbers filed off, and it could be Channing's own gun.
Thereby proving what, Archie?
That his wife had access to it.
Your theory involves Mrs. Channing, then?
And Mielik. She decides her husband is less trouble to her, dead than alive.
A regrettable tendency of wives. Have you noticed?
And she sells Mielik on the idea. Now, that wouldn't be hard. They figure to make it look like suicide, but Mielik loses his head and runs, drops the gun on his way out, and... Oh, you don't buy it.
Enough of theories. The facts, Archie. Out of your notebook.
1. 9 people were on the scene that night, working late for one reason or another.
Mrs. Channing tells me she was visiting a doctor's office in the same building, by the way.
2. Every one of those people hated Channing. 3. Here's a sample of why he wasn't popular.
A memorandum, huh?
Dictated the night he was killed. The staff got it the next morning.
A whip-cracker, Mr. Channing.
Fact 4. The ink stain on his trouser cuff was partly rubbed out.
With what?
Cleaner of some kind. I didn't get the brand. Fact 5. There's a spot on the carpet near Channing's chair.
Spot of what? Ink? Blood?
Looks like ink.
It looks like ink.
Well, I didn't analyze it on the spur of the moment. My chemical set isn't working so good, boss.
Phooey. Archie, I want 2 things.
Yes, sir?
Get over to headquarters. The police have Channing's trousers. Suggest to Inspector Kramer that he have the stain analyzed. Suggest also that the spot on the carpet be analyzed at the same time. Be around him when the information arrives.
This is Be Kind to the Police Week?
Phooey. I never have sought to beat the police on matters of fact, only on interpretation, deduction. Get going. Oh, and Archie.
Yes?
When you return, I should discourse upon the sanctity of deskhood.
The sanctity of what hood?
Deskhood. Now be off with you, and please remember you're tracking a murderer. Don't stub your toe.
Goodwin, the thing on the carpet was a dye of some kind.
Dye, huh?
Mm-hmm.
How long will it take the lab to give you the analysis on it, Inspector?
Oh, not very long. I've got the report on what was used on the trouser cuff right now, though.
And?
They found traces of carbon tetrachloride.
Wait a minute. This goes in the notebook. Carbon tetrachloride.
And something else. Goodwin, what's Wolfe after?
Interpretations was what he said, Inspector. You object?
No. Maybe I'll get an interpretation, too. The something else was perchloroethylene.
Why, Inspector, such language.
What? Archie. The phone. Oh, not back yet. Hello.
Mr. Wolfe?
Yes?
This is Brenda Barkley. Oh, Mr. Wolfe.
What is it, Miss Barkley?
You've got to come to Mr. Channing's office right away, Mr. Wolfe.
Mr. Goodwin has been to your office. Everything I need to know.
You've got to come, Mr. Wolfe.
Nonsense. I don't go out. My digestion disapproves of it. I disapprove of it.
But, Mr. Goodwin, he's in danger.
What's that?
Terrible danger. He needs you here at once.
Archie, danger? Let me talk to him.
Please come. Hurry.
What's happened? Hello. Sparkly. Fritz, get out of the car. Bring me my wool muffler and worsted vest. See if you can find my galoshes. Confound it, I've got to go out.
Going up. Step to the rear of the car, please. Mister, will you please step back?
I'm back as far as I can go.
You are?
Elevators, contraptions for little men. Come, take me up, young man.
Hold it. Hold that car. I'm late for a date with a blonde. 16th floor, buddy.
Evening, Mr. Goodwin.
Good evening.
I was told you were in danger.
Danger? Mr. Wolfe, what are you doing out down here?
Sparkley's idea.
About me being in danger?
Obviously, she was lying. I suspected at the time. But I fell in with her suggestion. I'm anxious to end the case. My presence here is needed.
Don't understand why she'd do such a thing, and why is your presence needed?
16th floor.
It's a matter of, perspective.
Brenda's got a very nice perspective. She'll be around here someplace. The agency's got this whole floor.
Her office?
Down this corridor, next to Channing's. Well, Kramer came through on those reports from the lab. That smudge on the carpet wasn't ink. It was a dye. Powdered aniline. Brenda.
Oh, Mr. Wolfe, thank heavens you're here.
Hey, I'm here, too.
The police, they questioned me again this afternoon. I'm so frightened, Mr. Wolfe. You've got to find the murderer before they...
Baby, take it easy.
Well, hello, Archie.
Hello. What's the idea of trying to pull a fast one on Mr. Wolfe?
Well, I just had to see him. Please understand.
Is this Channing's office?
Yes.
You told him I was in danger.
At last, the place to sit down.
Well, I had to tell him something to get him down here.
He's not happy. You comfortable there, sir?
Miss Barkley, come here.
Mr. Wolfe, I can explain. I thought if you were here, where it happened, if you could see for yourself, then you'd
Young woman, there are many things I'd like to say to you.
Oh, now, wait a minute. She was scared, boss.
However, I am too short of breath to do them justice. Archie.
Yes?
Round up everyone concerned with this case.
Right now?
Including Mrs. Channing. Get them in here.
Yes, sir.
You help him, Miss Barkley, and close that window.
Yes, Mr. Wolfe.
Fresh air. I've had enough today, thanks to you, to last me a lifetime. If after all that exposure, I live a lifetime.
What's going on here, anyhow?
A tea party. Find yourself seats. Keep your knees steady. All right, Mr. Wolfe, everybody's here.
Mr. Shoeshine Kelly?
Here, sir, here.
It was you who found the body.
Him and me, Mr. Wolfe. I'm Abe Jackson, the night man.
You gentlemen can help us if you will.
Oh, to be sure, Mr. Wolfe.
I'd like to know the exact position of the body when you found it.
Well, he was sitting up.
That's it, sir. Sitting up straight as you please.
You'll oblige me if you'll demonstrate. Sit in the chair, please.
His chair, sir?
If you please.
Abe, you.
Yeah. Oh, no, not me. Not on your life.
There's no easy thing you ask, Mr. Wolfe. I'll oblige you.
So, it was like this, I'd say.
You agree, Mr. Jackson?
A little more to the right, maybe. Yeah, that's the way it was.
Archie.
Yes, sir?
Help me with a brief recapitulation.
Well, so far as we know, Channing made no outcry.
Therefore, he could not have been startled by the appearance of the killer.
There were powder burns on the body.
Therefore, the gun was against Channing when it was fired. His own hand couldn't have held it closer.
Nobody heard the shot, probably because this office is soundproofed. The gun that killed him was lying on the floor 10 feet from the desk.
In the direction of flight through that door. Go on, Archie.
The killer was almost certainly well known to Channing, or Channing wouldn't have let him come that close without a struggle or an alarm. Also, the killer had access to this office. Another proof that he's not a stranger.
One more point, if I may, Archie. The killer, he or she, is present here now.
Quiet, everyone.
We come now to the point I mentioned to you last night, Archie. The point I call the sanctity of deskhood.
Sanctity of what?
Deskhood, Mrs. Channing. Explain, Archie.
Still figure it's so important?
Absolutely essential.
Well, I wrote it here somewhere. Oh. Deskhood refers to that area behind a desk where a man earns his livelihood, makes his career, builds his reputation.
You mean here? Where I'm sitting?
So long as a man sits at his desk, he enjoys a curious area of privacy. He is remarkably safe from intrusion. That's it, Mr. Wolfe.
Sanctity of deskhood. Think about it a moment. You'll see what I mean.
Nonsense. I've gone around that desk hundreds of times. I'm sure she has. Many more hundreds. If you mean what I think you mean, Mrs. Channing, you...
Please, ladies. Mrs. Channing, when you approached your husband at his desk, what did he do?
What did he... Why, he stood up and...
He stood up. Sparkley, you agree?
Well, yes, he'd have to stand up. At least he always did.
But for his murderer, he did not. Archie, resume from your notes, please.
Well, whoever killed Walter Channing went around the desk without Channing rising, held a gun to his chest, and pulled the trigger.
Excuse me. If you will go behind the desk and stand facing Mr. Kelly, Archie.
Here. This the way you mean?
You know the angle of the body wound to the hole in the chair?
There wasn't any angle. One was in a straight line with the other.
From where you stand now in front of Mr. Kelly, if you wish to inflict an identical wound upon him, could you do it?
Not from where I stand. I'd have to kneel.
You'd have to kneel. Do so. Note, please, the murder tableau.
You mean that's what we...
The question now, who could kneel before Channing, get close enough to kill him from that position without alarming him in the least?
Kelly.
The shoeshine man.
Hey, wait a minute now.
Shut up, you, and sit there.
His motive is crystal clear.
The memorandum.
Memorandum. You have a copy, Archie?
In my notebook.
Ah, yes. Miss Barclay, read the part which could explain Mr. Kelly's action.
No, not now.
The memo was all over the office. Kelly must have seen it.
Oh, wait a minute now. Notice effective at once. Yes, here it is. In the interest of economy, daily shoe shines will be eliminated.
That'd cut off Kelly's bread and butter.
Kelly, I can't believe it.
Nor can I.
What?
It's obvious Kelly murdered Walter Channing.
Mr. Wolfe, now listen, I did nothing of the
But
kind.
the obvious can be too obvious.
Meaning what exactly?
Archie?
Yes, sir?
Brief these people on the ink-stained trousers.
Channing spilled ink on his trouser cuff the night he was murdered. Somebody tried to clean the spot off.
With what?
According to the police analysis, carbon tetrachloride and perchloroethylene showed up.
Both non-inflammable ingredients used in many commercial cleaners.
Exactly what are you getting at, Mr. Wolfe?
One moment, Mrs. Channing. Mr. Goodwin also has an analysis of the spot on the carpet behind the desk. Archie?
A powder form of dye, aniline dye.
Used in what, perhaps?
Well, the lab suggested a shoe dressing.
I got no powder dye. I swear I ain't, Mr. Wolfe.
I'm sure you haven't, Mr. Kelly. You'll find this particular type of dressing is used on women's shoes, suede shoes, usually.
I don't understand.
Wait a minute.
Yes, Archie?
If a woman... Now, suppose a woman knelt in front of Channing to clean that ink spot off his trouser cuff. That smudge could have rubbed off the tip of her shoe onto the carpet.
Exactly. I believe you'll find a typewriter cleaner contains tetrachloride and perchloroethylene.
Something else just occurred to me. That memo was sent around the morning after Channing was killed.
I never thought of that.
True, Archie. And for only one purpose, to point suspicion at Kelly.
But when the police didn't take the hint...
Go on, Archie. What then?
Somebody else was brought down here who would. Comes around to 3 questions, doesn't it? Who knew about the memo? Who had access to Channing's file where he kept his gun? And who made sure Nero Wolfe would see the evidence against Kelly?
3 questions, Archie, with one answer that spells the name of the murderess. Our own client, Brenda Barkley. Steak, Archie, marinated. You like it?
I'm not hungry.
Indeed, I suggest a tonic.
That reminds me. I had a call.
You had?
Doris Channing. She had some idea about my explaining things to her.
She found my explanation insufficient?
No, but she felt it lacked the personal touch.
Phooey. Hand me a can of beer. However, you do have the evening off.
Yes, sir.
Keep out of trouble. Doris Channing is a blonde. That is, try to keep out of trouble.
In the company of a blonde who wants to. Good night, sir.
Good night, Archie. Good night.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by William Kendall Clark was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman program produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Larry Dobkin as Archie Goodwin, and Donald Morrison, Betty Lou Gerson, Bill Johnstone, Howard McNear, Mary Lansing, and Barney Phillips. Next week, at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you the case of The Girl Who Cried Wolf. John Storm speaking. Nero Wolfe, Archie, and all of our cast hope that our listeners have taken time out from this busy Christmas season to help brighten some youngster's Christmas day. Be sure to send a thing, your choice of anything you think a child would like for Christmas, to the groups in your own town who are distributing these toy gifts to less fortunate children. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, for the 2nd week in a row, Nero Wolfe left the brownstone. I thought this week's departure was a little bit more believable, as I just finished League of Frightened Men. And in that novel, that was the first time Wolfe left the brownstone, and it was because Archie was in danger, though the threat was far more specific. But otherwise, a good mystery. I think that this took a couple of really strong turns. By the way, I did, this past week, also get to finish Season 1 of the Nero Wolfe Mysteries from A&E. And Over My Dead Body, so far, is one of my favorite just for the amount of backstory it reveals about Wolfe. So we've been continuing to enjoy that. We still have, I think, about 3 more DVDs to go till we've reviewed the whole series. So, well, that'll do it for now. Before we do get started with today's show, I do want to remind you that my wife and I's book, Tales of the Dim Night, is available. It's available as a paperback book or in any ebook reader that you can imagine. And it's a fantastic parody and homage to Golden Age superheroes. You will enjoy it. You can go to dimnight.com, read a sample chapter. But let's go ahead and we will take a listen to today's episode of Let George Do It, One Chance at the World.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. One Chance at the World, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If life is a continual dance with someone else calling the tunes, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, it's a great homecoming after you've been away several years to find your wife waiting for you, dead. But that's what happened to me. She died a week before I got to town. The chaplain said maybe I was crazy to even come back here. But now that I did, I'm glad. Because my wife was murdered, Mr. Valentine. And what do I find? The guy who killed her still sits at home eating squab and drinking champagne.
Well, that's what you said in your letter, Mr. Evans. Murdered.
It's what I meant, and the name is Nard.
Oh.
I'm not used to being called Mr.
Okay, Nard. Your wife's name was Verna.
That's right.
Well, the newspapers indicated Verna Evans was hit by an automobile when she was walking across an intersection out by the edge of town.
Yeah, a week ago Saturday night.
And it said the driver was exonerated.
Sure. Dismissed with a couple of words, like she was. About the size of a death notice way back on page 7. But did the article say who he was?
But
no.
you...
Probably knows the editor, that's why. It was Mr. Farrell Paulson. Now what do you think?
Look, Nard, I know that Mr. Paulson's important. He's a big man. And the kind that doesn't like to have his name in the paper, but...
I'll say he doesn't. Not unless he's kissing a baby or
But
something.
I also know that the police in this town don't play favorites. And I know they must have looked into this case thoroughly.
I was afraid that that's what you'd say. I went to the police. They said the whole story was in the papers. So I went to Mr. Paulson himself. You'd think he'd at least feel sorry about killing a woman, but he wouldn't even see me, Mr. Valentine. Not even see me.
Oh, he wouldn't, huh? Hey, look, now, tell me a little more about yourself, will you? In the letter you mentioned chaplain. Where have you been, the Army?
Prison.
Oh, I see.
You're pretty young, aren't you?
23.
How long were you there?
Good behavior. Only 2.5 years.
What for?
Assault with a deadly weapon.
Want to tell me about it?
No, why should I? It's over with. I paid for it.
Okay, Nard. Being bitter never helps, you know.
I try not to be, Mr. Valentine. I know I shouldn't be. I know Verna wouldn't want me to be.
But it's not so easy when things like this happen.
We were always so close. Married when we were just kids. We started our own little business, laundry and cleaning. I even worked out some new machines, fast presses. Oh, we had big plans. But I haven't even got that anymore.
What do you mean?
She had to sell out while I was away. I told her not to, but I guess she had to eat somehow. Grofay Laundry's got everything I own. I don't know why I'm telling you all this, except, well, I haven't got a penny to pay you with.
Who says I'm going to do anything I need pay for?
You mean you won't help me? You mean I get the brush from you, too? Sorry, jailbird, it's just tough,
now,
that's
look,
all.
why don't you... Kid, would you hammer something into that head of yours? The world is not against you. I know maybe it looks that way to you, but it's not.
Yeah, sure. That's what the chaplain kept saying, and I believed him, too.
All I'm trying to tell you is I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to prove it to you.
I'm not trying to evade my responsibilities, if that's what you're thinking, Mr. Valentine. Or my conscience.
All right, Mr. Paulson. All right, I believe you.
It's just that
Maybe it's just that you want time to plan what you're going to say to him a little more carefully.
I beg your pardon?
You were driving your car last Saturday night. Were you alone?
Yes.
Speeding?
No.
Drinking?
No.
Now, what happened?
The police have the case. They have every bit of information. There's no sense in
Okay, Mr. Paulson.
Your client, the young man, the husband, he's not trying to cause any further trouble, is he?
Oh, no, Mr. Paulson. He's happy
Oh,
that
I
you...
know I shouldn't have said it that way. I didn't mean it that way. The accident wasn't my fault. I slammed on my brakes, but she was running across the street and... I bet he'd like to kill me. I don't like myself very much either.
It wasn't your fault, and yet you don't just feel upset. You feel guilty, too, don't you? Why?
See here, I have to get back inside.
It wouldn't be you've held something back, would it, even from the police?
No, of course not. But, what's your name again?
Valentine.
Yes. Perhaps we'll meet again, Mr. Valentine.
Lieutenant Riley, what's homicide got to do with Verna Evans' death? And how did you know what we're here for anyway?
Paulson called me.
Oh.
But as regards your first, homicide has nothing to do with it. Just Riley the sucker. Good old Riley, everybody's friend.
Just what are you talking about?
Oh, never mind. Wait a second. Hewitt, this is Miss Brooks and Mr. Valentine.
Well, how do you do, Hewitt?
I'm Nard's cousin, miss. Sure pleased to meet you.
Oh, Hewitt. What brings you down?
Well, Nard's staying with me, you see. I guess he doesn't like to go back to their old apartment. We don't mind having him. It's the least we can do. Now, remember what I said, Hewitt. And remember, it's got nothing to do with you blaming yourself. How can I help it? I mean, at least we could have had her over once a week, regular. But Saturday night was the gin rummy club, and... Well, the wife did her best getting her for meals. And I saw Verna several times helping her sell that cleaner stuff to Johnny Grofay. I said don't blame yourself. Now, just try and think about what I've been telling you so you can help. No, all you've been saying is a lot of police department stuff. Huh? I know how you work. I'm not actually saying this guy Paulson did any fixing or anything. But I am saying I know what Verna was like. You guys better make up something better than that for Nard. That's all I'm saying. So long, Lieutenant. Yeah. Police department stuff. What's the matter with people? What do they think we do? Sit down here plotting against everybody?
Oh, remember your blood pressure, Lieutenant.
Well, that's what you're here for, too, isn't it? To say, Riley, what's the big idea of brushing the poor kid off? Big, hard-hearted police department. Oh, don't mind me. I've had a bad morning, that's all.
Start at the beginning, will you, Riley?
Yeah, sure. Traffic referred the case to me because I was the one who sent Nard Evans up 3 years ago. I was a sergeant then.
Oh, the assault with a deadly weapon?
Oh, it sounds worse than it was. Nard was just a kid, went after a couple of sailors with a tire iron because he thought they insulted his wife. Well, he deserved to be punished, all right. A man can't let his temper fly any time he wants,
But he was really just a hot-headed boy who loved his wife too much.
Oh, he idolized her. She was cute, too. Blonde. Not too bright, but very nice. And that's why traffic referred this case to me.
Hey, clear up that one, will you?
Well, point A, Farrell Fulson's not at all to blame for the accident.
You sure?
Not according to my evidence. Point B, Verna Evans was.
What?
Huh?
Oh, yeah. The hard-hearted police department thought it might be better if Nard didn't know the truth. That's why we gave the kid the stall this morning. That's why we had his cousin in, hoping he might be able to ease the blow.
The blow? What do you mean, Lieutenant?
The accident happened last Saturday night out by the edge of town. Crowded highways, crowded roadhouses.
Go on, Lieutenant, go on.
Well, we don't know whether she was with anybody or not, but we do know she had been other nights the same week. About a dozen witnesses in a joint called Springer's Shack remember seeing her. Then some guy took her arm and she went outside. Tried to walk across the highway when Paulson and a lot of other cars were coming and, well, Paulson couldn't help himself.
What else, Riley?
Well, the kid's beautiful, wonderful wife could hardly stand up straight.
Wow. Hello, Nard. I thought you'd gone home over to your cousin's.
No, I had to know what was going on. I came back up. Your office was locked, but...
Yeah, well, let's go inside, kid. We can talk.
No. Tell me right now. What did you find out?
Well, Nard, Mr. Paulson isn't guilty of anything. And the police didn't mean to give you a brush off. They just didn't seem to think you'd understand. I think they were wrong.
What do you mean?
Well, Miss Brooks means... I understand that you're being in prison. Well, it was pretty hard on your wife, too.
Verna? What are you trying to tell me?
Nard, the other night that accident was just unavoidable. Vern had been out. She'd been having a good time. She'd had a few.
You're lying to me. Verna never drank in her life.
We looked over the evidence ourselves, Nard. Statements from people who saw her. There's no question about it.
You're lying to me. You're trying to hide something.
Take it easy, kid. Now, come on inside.
No, let go of me. You're the one who was going to help.
Nard, please.
Oh, you're all like the rest of them. A guy's a jailbird. Give him a kick.
Hey, Nard, easy.
I'll show you what it feels like. Here's your payment for doing nothing.
Wait a minute, Nard.
No, let him go.
Oh, George.
Maybe that sock got some of it out of his system.
Oh, darling. Your cheek's bleeding.
That's okay.
Here, give me the key.
Hey, wait a minute, Brooksy. He said the office was locked. But I don't remember locking it.
Huh?
Not the outer room. No, you see, it's not. What in the name of...
Oh.
Farrell Paulson.
Oh, golly.
Yeah, here's the gun. With a silencer. And Brooksy, I guess he's about as dead as 6 bullets will make a man.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Good evening, car owner. Did you know that the most severe wear in your car's engine starts the moment you cut the ignition off? It's caused by condensation of acid-laden moisture on vital parts. The result is corrosive rust, which is responsible for 80% of engine wear. But there's a sure way to stop this high-cost corrosion. Use premium quality RPM motor oil. RPM contains special compounds that prevent rust. One compound in RPM is an adhering agent which keeps a moisture-proof film on the cylinder walls of your engine. And RPM stays on the job, preventing rust, even though your car stands idle for days or weeks. No wonder RPM is first choice in the West. It's the oil that stops 80% of engine wear. Ask for RPM at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You meet a boy just out of prison whose wife was killed a week before. Yes, Verna Evans was struck by an automobile driven by a Mr. Farrell Paulson. The police tell you that Mr. Paulson was not to blame, that the only reason for the accident was the difficulty Mrs. Evans was having with her own navigation. The boy, Nard, quite understandably, refuses to believe such a thing about his wife and socks you when you try to tell him about it. So, like George Valentine, you have a pretty sore jaw. And it's not helped any by the fact that you've now found Mr. Paulson dead in your office.
Well, stop looking at me, Valentine. I didn't say Evans killed him, did I? People always point at the cop and say, there he goes, accusing somebody.
My, aren't we touchy today?
Oh, well, it's just that I can't help kicking myself for being so gooey-hearted this morning. Gooey-hearted. Maybe if I told Nard the facts straight out, but no. I had to protect his dream about his wife.
Hey, look, Riley, I had the feeling Paulson hadn't told the whole story yet. Something bothered him. Subconscious, maybe.
Yeah? Well, try this on your subconscious. My boys ran the gun down.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was bought this morning from a hock shop on 3rd Street. Purchaser signed his name John Smith. But he had brown eyes, 5'10", about 160 pounds, complexion a little pale.
Nard Evans.
Yeah, to a T. Well, I've got to put out an all points for him.
Okay, Riley. But while your cops are looking for the boy, I'm going to go out and find him. Come on, Brooksy. Excuse the gate crashing, mister. We're in a hurry. You own the Grove Fay Laundry, don't you?
Yes.
Well, I'm looking for Nard Evans. Have you seen him?
Who? Yes, you have seen him, haven't you? And you're scared to death.
Why would I have seen anyone named Nard Evans?
Huh? Oh, I played you for just a long shot, but I guess you're not. Nard's a boy who thinks the world's against him. I thought he might have been here to file a complaint. You bought some machines or patents or something from his wife, fast presser.
Oh, yes, I remember now, but there certainly would be no reason to complain.
Yeah, for a long shot, you sound more and more like a sure thing. Now, come on. When was he here? There's a murder involved.
It was 15 minutes ago.
George, after the murder.
Keep talking.
Well, he was talking wildly, made a lot of threats. He had the ridiculous idea that his wife had been put upon.
I guess she was. I guess that's why you're so scared.
Are you implying that I swindled the girl? Now, you see here, you know she came to me alone. She did. Absolutely alone. It was her idea to sell. She needed money, she said, and...
And you were glad to oblige, huh?
Mr. Grove, did Verna Evans impress you as the kind of girl who'd spend a good deal on parties or maybe liquor?
Oh, well... I don't know. Perhaps, yes, now that you mention it. Why?
That's a good question, Mr. Grove. Why a lot of things? Like, why believe everything we hear?
Sure, that's us, mister. Springer's shack. Been here for 25 years, me and Pa.
Well, I guess it's your husband we want to see, Mrs. Springer. He was one of the main witnesses in that Evans accident. You know, the girl who was hit by the car when she walked out of here last Saturday night?
Oh, yes, I know. Poor little thing.
Well, tell me, is your husband... I said, is your husband
You don't have to yell, mister. I'm so used to trucks backfiring, I can hear myself think by 'em. Well, I'll be here any second. Been taking a nap in the house out back.
Mrs. Springer, do you remember Verna Evans?
Well, not much. See, I'm busy on the cash register and cooking, too. We're mostly a restaurant, you know.
Yeah, it gets a little noisy around here on Saturday nights.
Well, we got 2 jukeboxes. Sure it does, mister. No, Pa was the one told the police about, well, you know, about the condition she was in.
What sort of condition was she in?
Well, Pa's pretty strict. He wouldn't serve her more than the one drink, and she didn't touch that. She couldn't.
Why not?
I guess other places aren't so particular. She'd been filled up, lady, before she ever got here. Oh, Lordy. I don't know. Some folks thought so, some folks didn't, but Saturday nights, mister, well, you better just ask Pa.
Oh, what's that? I
said you better...
Hey, that wasn't a bad...
Oh, sure.
Come on.
Around this way. Look out for the puppies. Springer Spaniels, but they're really Airedales. Pa, where are you? Pa, what are you...
Hey.
Oh, no. No! Oh, Pa!
Take care of it. There's a shotgun. Mr. Springer, can you hear me? Hey, Mr. Springer. Who did it? Can you hear me? Who did it?
That's Evans fella.
Mr. Springer. You were out there, Lieutenant. You saw Mrs. Springer. She doesn't lie.
And we told you what she said about just one drink.
Now, traffic can't come up with any other bars where Verna Evans was seen drinking. Just a lot of corroborating stuff on her weaving around in that one place.
Yeah. The doctors will let us know in a couple of minutes. They're already re-examining the body. You know how many orders it takes to get an exhumation? Oh, never mind. What I keep thinking about is poor old man Springer was the girl's big accuser. He threw the first rock. From Nard's standpoint, he called his wife names in public. Motive.
Lieutenant Riley.
Oh, there we are now.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah.
Sergeant Johnson, a couple of patrol cars located that Evans boy.
What?
Got him cornered upstairs of a garage on 73rd Street. He's daring them to come on up after him. They say a homicide has a hold on it, waiting for instructions. The Evans boy is armed with a shotgun.
Okay, Johnson, tell him...
Riley, get in there and ask the doctors to hurry, will you? And tell those guys to keep the kids surrounded until we get there.
up here, Lieutenant. There's a room over the garage. Stairs are inside.
Yeah, okay, Sergeant. Oh, hello, Hewitt.
That's my shotgun he's got, Mr. Valentine. I came home from work and found he'd been there and it was missing. I live over in the next block.
Yeah, anybody try to go in yet?
He says he'll shoot if we stick our heads in. Says make him an offer and let Hewitt here deliver it. Guess Hewitt's the only one he'll trust.
Gosh, I feel like a heel. I'd like to help, but I've got a family to think about. I know what he's like when he's like this, when he loses his temper.
Shall we let go with the tear gas, Lieutenant?
No, just stand back from the door. I'm going to have a talk with him first.
George,
relax,
no.
Angel, relax.
Okay, Valentine. All clear.
Is that you, Hewitt?
Not, it's me. Valentine.
You got 2 seconds to get out before I blow your head off.
Tough, aren't you? The jailbird. The guy who used a tire iron on 2 sailors. Keep your buttons on. I haven't got a gun.
Keep your buttons on. I can shoot yours off. You bet I can't.
Yeah, you really have got the world against you now, haven't you? Everybody hates you now. The police, me, Johnny Grofay, the whole world.
I'm not kidding, Mr. Valentine. Get out of here. You're the only one I'll talk to.
Nod, did you ever hear of a man named Springer?
Who's he?
Now listen, kid, I got news for you. I asked the police to exhume the body of your wife, Verna.
What? Why, you...
Listen to me, will you?
Soldier?
The doctors can't tell about alcohol after a day or so. But they could tell about something else that was in her stomach. A drug, a dope.
What?
Drugs, dope. When Paulson's car hit her, when all those people saw her in Springer's shack, she acted like she'd had a few too many. Now, she could have been made to act that way by a drug.
I guess so. So what?
Listen to me, Nod. A couple of years ago, you went to prison. You told your wife not to sell that fast pressing machine thing of yours. But she needed money.
Yeah, I know all that.
Verna was young. She could have been persuaded to sell. Only when she found out later she'd been taken, that Grofay was really making hay out of his purchase, she got frantic. Her last week, she tore around, seeing people maybe, seeing men maybe.
There's always white guys that put on the wrong interpretation.
Sure. But who was in a position to persuade Verna?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who was in a position to collect a rake-off from Grofay? Who told me he'd seen Grofay with her when Grofay was so careful to say she'd been alone? Who would have gotten scared to death because he knew how rough you could be?
Tell it out, will you? Get out of here or I'll pull this trigger.
Who could have gotten panicky and drugged her and shoved her out on the highway and been scared to death Paulson saw something funny? Scared to death of Paulson and Springer, too, because he might remember his face from being at Springer's.
Mr. Valentine, stop it. I'm warning you.
Only Springer remembered a name. That Evans fella, he said. But he never met you. He could have meant Hewitt Evans.
No, you're not. Get out of here.
And the reason I know I'm right is because you want me to get out of here and Hewitt to come in. So you, jailbird, can kill him.
I didn't know about Springer. I went to your office and found Paulson dead. I tore out after Grofay. I tore all over town and everywhere there was cops. And Hewitt hid me. Later on, he brought me over here. I never got wise until I saw that here there was a shotgun and it had been fired so she could smell it. He stole the gun I bought in the pawn shop. He picked me for a patsy. There were extra shells. He wanted me to shoot it out and get killed by the police. Well, I'm going to blast a hole in him. Get out of here, Valentine. I'm going to... You know, I told you a long time ago that my wife didn't drink.
Yeah, kid. Yeah, you did. I guess I figured if you had that much faith in her, maybe somebody ought to have some faith in you. Now, you still want to kill him?
Here's the gun, Mr. Valentine.
George, why do you suppose Mr. Paulson came up here to the office? What do you suppose he was going to tell us?
Oh, I don't think he'd actually been hiding anything he'd seen at the time of the accident, Brooksy. He didn't actually see Hewitt push her. Just a suspicion, tinge of doubt. And, well, all of us feel it's so much easier not to get mixed up in things.
I know. Like it's so much easier to make a flat-footed accusing statement. Like Mr. Springer must have about Verna Evans.
Yeah.
Oh, people are so careless and selfish when they tell things they see. When they tell things they've been told. They forget that somebody might suffer. Somebody might be robbed of his chance at the world.
Well, Nod Evans has a pretty good chance now, Brooksy. You see, I think that...
George, I love you.
For a happy vacation trip, and indeed for your everyday motoring, take a tip. Go on Chevron Supreme gasoline. It's blended perfectly to give your car's engine ping-free power under every driving condition. Faster starts for cold engines, quicker pickup in traffic, and extra power on hills with never an engine knock. Ping-free power means more economical motoring, you know. For a knocking engine is a strained and laboring engine that's wasting both power and fuel. So make sure you get Chevron Supreme, a premium quality gasoline. Remember, it's climate-tailored according to the West's different altitude and temperature zones. Gives your car its best performance wherever you buy it. In fact, you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for Chevron Supreme at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Next week, when we find George Valentine trying to solve a new riddle on a country estate, we'll hear...
I did see him, George. Right over there, through the fog.
Okay, Angel, let's take a look. I'll turn on the flashlight.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute.
Huh?
Look at that, Brooksy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He didn't even reach his car to get away.
That makes two of them, Angel. And our job is to see that somebody doesn't make it three.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Let George Do It was written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Walter Burke as Nard, Ted Von Eltz as Paulson, Clayton Post as Hewitt, Bob Griffin as Grope, and Martha Wentworth as Ma. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. You know, as we've done Let George Do It, we've talked quite a bit about the strength of Brooksy as a character, perhaps the best female sidekick, and in terms of competency and being a contributor to the team, perhaps just playing the best sidekick in Radio Detectives. But you also have to say something for Wally Mayer in Lieutenant Riley. The way that Mayer portrays Riley, really, it's a great police character that's very engaging. Oftentimes in the private detective shows, you end up with one or two stereotypes. You end up with the incompetent police officer, such as Faraday from Boston Blackie, or you end up with the brutal police officer who's out to get our hero, like in Pat Novak and Johnny Madero. Or you end up with a police officer that's just kind of bland or dull or just plain stereotypical. Hey, Johnny shouldn't be going, hey, did the arrest. But Lieutenant Riley, I think, is definitely a cut above. Very heartfelt, animated, not ready to discount everything that Valentine says, very much a friend and respectful, but also a strong defender of the department. And really, in this episode, Riley came out pretty well. I thought that I did admit the way that the mystery turned and the solution did kind of surprise me. And that this type of curveball mystery is one that Jackson Gillis created quite a bit. Well, for those of you who have the app, the last of our 3 Sidney Greenstreet comedy guest star appearances are posted, so you can download and enjoy. We got an email from Allegra, who sends a very nice email, and she says that she's been enjoying the Old Time Radio Detective podcast immensely for several months now, and wanted to thank you for all the work and enthusiasm you put into their show. I used to listen to episodes of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, which some DJ at KCRW, the public station, which operates out of Santa Monica City College in Southern California, liked to play in the late 80s and early 90s. It was my first ever introduction to old-time radio drama, though I had grown up listening to radio adaptations of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Star Wars. Yes, there was a radio adaptation, with my dad as a kid in the 70s. I love radio detective shows, best of all, the old-time radio I've been able to find since I realized a few years ago that such shows were made available via podcast and on various websites. I will gladly tell anyone who asks, though, and some who don't, that The Great Detectives of Old-Time Radio is the best put together and most consistent show of its kind by far. I'd never listened to any Jeff Regan before finding your show, and only heard 1 or 2 episodes of Let George Do It. And I'm certainly a fan now. I already love Johnny Dollar and Sherlock Holmes, and Pat Novak for Hire and Nero Wolfe are growing on me. You're extending my old-time radio world, Adam. I really like the format you use, too. And I'll interrupt the comment just to say that thank you for that. And that's kind of one thing we go for. We get a lot of requests for a wide variety of shows, and we plan on working most of those in, unless we've just put it in the no pile for whatever reason. But really enjoy is helping folks find new favorites, so I'm glad you're finding some new ones there. And she says, oh, and I cannot wait until it's time to hear The Saint. Vincent Price in that role is just fantastic. I definitely agree on that. She said, I'll get around to the point of this message sometime. I've been listening my way through your archives one at a time backwards, as well as listening to new episodes as they come out. Some while back, you played an episode of Let George Do It entitled The Little Man Who Was Everywhere, and you wondered at the title to which there had been a similar reference in another show as well. I wonder whether that might not refer in a way to Antigonish, a poem by Hugh Mearns, or the song based on the poem, which was apparently popular in 1939. And yeah, looking at it, yeah, that definitely does appear to be the case. I think I'd found another source a few episodes later, but thanks so much for sharing. Really appreciate the email. And that'll actually do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Well, before we get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, I do want to remind you about Netflix. Well, I have one movie left in my quest to see all of the Rathbone Bruce Sherlock Holmes films, and it's thanks in part to Netflix. Whether you want to see Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes, or you want to go earlier than that, or enjoy Jeremy Britt's fine series, or the latest BBC series Sherlock, Netflix is the place to go. It is your home for Holmes and nearly anything else you could want to watch. With more than 90,000 titles, including a lot of great classics and a great instant watch library, It's a great deal, and I encourage folks to check it out and take advantage of a 1-month free trial. Go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Well, let's get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Singular Affair of the Dying Schoolboys.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Once again, it's time to call on our old friend, that incomparable host and storyteller, Dr. Watson. He's waiting for us in his familiar study. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. I won't get up if you don't mind. This change in the weather has given me a twinge or two of rheumatism, I'm afraid.
No, I'm sorry to hear that, Dr. Watson.
We old fossils can't expect to be as hale and hearty as you young fellows, you know.
I don't know that I feel so young today, Dr. Watson. I stopped by the military academy this afternoon and saw my cousin there. He's 13 years old, and after an hour with him, I realized I'm really quite ancient.
13 years old. Oh, a fine age. He's happy at the school, Mr. Bell?
Crazy about it.
Yes, I'm sure that in this day and age, a boy almost looks forward to going to school. Conditions were far different in certain parts of England just before the turn of the century, I'm afraid. I'm thinking in particular of a school that Holmes and I had occasion to visit, and of the frightened, unhappy youngsters who lived there in mortal terror of their lives.
Oh, this has all the hallmarks of the beginning of a Sherlock Holmes adventure.
It is, my boy. It's a story I call The Singular Affair of the Dying Schoolboys. But before I begin, haven't you a message for our listeners?
Yes, I have. Folks, it looks as if we're in for plenty of excitement tonight with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And men, I'll bet you'll be plenty excited about the great improvement in the appearance of your hair once you use Kreml Hair Tonic. Frankly, I've tried any number of hair dressings, but it took Kreml to really convince me that my hair can always be neat without having to plaster it down with grease or those sticky, gooey concoctions. And Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking attractive. It makes hair so much easier to comb and actually helps condition the hair, in that it leaves it feeling so much softer, easier to manage. At the same time, Kreml removes embarrassing dandruff flakes. It relieves itching due to dry scalp and leaves your scalp feeling so clean, so alive. Man, what a treat. Now be sure to buy a bottle at any drug counter, spelled Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the singular affair of the dying schoolboys?
Well, Mr. Bell, that strange adventure began on a stormy September evening in Baker Street many, many years ago. All day long the wind had screamed and the rain had beaten against our windows. Shortly after dinner, there was the old familiar jangle on our front doorbell. And a few moments later, Mrs. Hudson ushered a distinguished visitor into the room. As he stood there in front of the flickering firelight, I could see that he was a good-looking man, and also that he was in a state of considerable excitement.
Now, Lord Manders, if you will just give us the facts.
Well, Mr. Holmes, 3 years ago, I was a passenger on that ill-fated ship, the Sophie Anderson. She was wrecked in a gale, and I was the only survivor. I clung to a piece of broken spar and was washed ashore, and after that, for over 2 years, I lived alone on an island in the Indian Ocean. Naturally, when the Sophie Anderson foundered, I was believed to be dead. My young brother, Eric, who was next in line, inherited the estate and the guardianship of our uncle.
Must have been quite a lot of confusion when you arrived home this year, Lord Manders.
There was, Dr. Watson, but not for the reason you suppose. I landed in England to find that my brother had died last December.
Oh, indeed, I'm very sorry.
He died under very peculiar circumstances. That's why I've come to you, Mr. Holmes.
What were those circumstances?
My uncle sent Eric to a school on the Welsh moors, not far from Cardiff. A school known as Ponsonby Hall. He died in the school infirmary there, supposedly of pneumonia.
And you have some reason to believe it was not pneumonia?
Nothing definite. I've been down to the school, but Dr. Ponsonby, the owner, was too ill to see me. However, I did talk to a frightening woman there, who's the matron of the place, a Mrs. Arkwright. I became suspicious. So I stayed on and, for a few days, made some local inquiries.
With what results?
Ponsonby Hall has a black name with the villagers, Mr. Holmes. 5 boys have died there in the last 2 years under circumstances similar to my brother's.
Good gracious me.
I presume that you immediately had an accounting with your uncle?
My uncle had settled another account before my return, Mr. Holmes. He died of a heart attack last February. But I am certain he was responsible for Eric's death. You see, he stood to inherit the estate. It may sound incredible, but I believe Eric was murdered at Ponsonby Hall.
Murdered in a boys' school? Oh, come, sir. Such things can't happen in this 19th century of ours.
But they can, Watson. And do, unfortunately.
You don't mean it?
I do. A private school situated in a desolate spot and operated by an unprincipled scoundrel could provide excellent and profitable opportunities for removing unwanted relatives.
What a ghastly thought.
Mr. Holmes, I know that Eric's dead and nothing can bring him to life again. But I can try and avenge his death and bring his murderer to justice. You will help me, won't you?
Yes, Lord Manders, I will. If these shocking occurrences have been taking place, we may be able at least to prevent further tragedies. Watson, suppose we join Lord Manders on the West of England Express tonight, and tomorrow see what can be done to penetrate the black clouds that surround Ponsonby Hall.
We're walking in the wrong direction, Mr. Holmes. The school's behind us.
And before going there, I thought we might profitably pay a visit here in the village to Llewellyn Coffin.
Oh, who's he?
The local undertaker.
An undertaker named Coffin? That's very funny, isn't it? Coffin, undertaker.
Quite. But try and control your amusement, will you, Watson?
Oh, sorry, Albert.
Here's his establishment now.
Good day, gentlemen.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes, sir. That's my name, Coffin.
We're strangers in these parts, and we're in search of information. I'm hoping, Mr. Coffin, that you'll be able to help us.
What I can do, sir, I will, and do it gladly.
I understand that you've had an unusually large proportion of business from Ponsonby Hall in the past 2 years.
5 boys died, didn't they?
5 boys it was.
Mr. Coffin, we've heard some strange stories in the village.
Yes, stories that make us wonder if those deaths were from natural causes.
Gentlemen, I'm a simple man, look you. A man who plies his trade but cannot afford to ask questions. What goes on at Ponsonby Hall, and I'll not say strange things haven't happened there, is none of my business.
Then let me appeal to your sympathies. My young brother died at Ponsonby Hall last December. You must have buried him.
Your brother? Well, now look you, that makes it different. But you'll not say anything up at the hall, sir. Dr. Ponsonby's a savage man.
Don't worry on that score, Mr. Coffin.
What do you often know him, sir?
All the 5 boys were supposed to have had pneumonia, I understand.
That's what the medical report said.
Who signed those reports?
Dr. Ponsonby himself. He's a regular medical doctor, look you.
How very convenient. No questions had to be asked. Mr. Coffin, when you prepared those bodies for burial, did you notice anything unusual about them? Anything to make you think their deaths were possibly not caused by pneumonia?
No, sir.
Think now.
Well, now that you mention it, there was one thing I was after noticing.
Oh, what was that, my good man?
The boys had a strange look on their faces as they lay there, as if something had frightened the wits out of them just before they died.
That's very odd. The face of anyone dying from pneumonia would be in repose.
Did you notice anything else, Mr. Coffin? Any other peculiarity?
Well, there was one thing, sir, that gave me to thinking. All the boys had marks on them. Stretch marks they were on their necks or shoulders.
Perhaps they were bites. Remember Dr. Rylott of Stoke Moran, Holmes?
Did these marks look like the bites of a snake, Mr. Coffin?
No, that they weren't. Look you, I know a snake bite when I see one.
Didn't these marks make you suspicious?
That they did, sir. And when I saw them on the boys, I took my courage in my hands and asked Dr. Ponsonby.
And what did he say?
Inoculation marks. He said that he had tried to save them with some newfangled medicine.
No autopsy was held on the boys?
No, sir. Dr. Ponsonby is the only doctor in these parts, look you. He gave the certificates. Who was to ask any questions?
Exactly. Come on, Watson, Lord Manders. This has been a very promising start. Thank you, Mr. Coffin. You've been most helpful.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, gentlemen. But please don't be after repeating what I said.
Well, Mr. Holmes, I think you'll agree my suspicions were well grounded.
Yes. And we'll lose no time investigating this matter. I think we may work faster if we divide our forces. I shall return to the inn and compose a telegram that I shall ask you to send for me, Lord Manders.
Of course, Mr. Holmes.
Aren't you going to Ponsonby Hall, Holmes?
Not immediately. However, you, my dear Watson, can be my advance guy.
Me?
Yes. I think that your open countenance, combined with that delightful Scottish accent you sometimes assume, plus an appropriate name, should lull Dr. Ponsonby into believing that he has another wealthy customer who needs his very specialized services.
Well, Holmes, I'll do my best. Just the same, I'll be very relieved when you get on the scene.
I'm Mrs. Arkwright, the school matron. Whom did you wish to see?
I want to have a word with Dr. Ponsonby. My name is Angus McLaughlin, and I'm most anxious to send my young cousin here.
Oh?
Aye, he needs discipline, and I'm told that you dinner pamper a young lad here.
Please come in. I'm sure Dr. Ponsonby will see you.
Thank you, Mrs. Arkwright.
Go in, please.
Dr. Ponsonby?
Yes, please sit down, won't you?
Thank you, sir. My name is Angus McLaughlin. I've travelled all the way from Aberdeen to see you. I was told that at your school you at least know how to discipline a lad.
Well, Mr. McLaughlin, in our modest way, we endeavour to inculcate our students with a sense of responsibility.
Aye.
I was about to have a glass of wine. Perhaps you'd care to join me?
That's very kind of you, Dr. Ponsonby. I'd like to.
You wish to send a relative here, Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye, sir, a young cousin of mine, if you'll take him.
Here's your wine, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, sir. And to your very good health. That's very good.
Tell me more about your cousin, sir. Before I accept a new student, I like to know as much about him as possible.
Well, I'll be quite frank with you. He's 13 years old and he's a young devil, and an inconvenient young devil, too. You see, Dr. Ponsonby, I'm his guardian. You follow me?
No, sir, I don't think I do.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not a poor man, and I'd be a very wealthy one if it weren't for that boy. The whippersnapper is the only person who stands between me and my dead brother's fortune. I wouldn't be sorry if anything were to happen to him. Am I making myself quite clear, Doctor?
Much clearer, Mr. McLaughlin. Another glass of wine?
Thank you. Well, it's very good.
Mr. McLaughlin, why not put all your cards on the table? So much simpler that way.
Very well. Does £10,000 mean anything to you, Dr. Ponsonby?
Dear me, yes. The scholastic profession is notoriously unremunerative.
If my young cousin were to be taken ill, perhaps, shall we say, with pneumonia, if he were to die here at your school, what was I saying? I'd pay you £10,000. And now, sir, I can't be more explicit than that. No, can I?
I don't think so. By the way, Mr. McLaughlin, your Scottish accent is beginning to disappear. Such a pity. It was quite colourful.
Wine's drugged. You haven't touched your wine's drugged.
I'm a most abstemious man. Particularly on occasions like this, Dr. Watson.
How did you know my name?
Even in this remote spot, I've seen photographs of you and your friend, the famous Sherlock Holmes. I'm just a little hurt that you both thought I was stupid enough to be fooled so easily. You seem dreadfully sleepy, Dr. Watson.
Sleep, I've got to go to sleep.
And sleep well, my friend. I only hope that you don't have too much trouble waking up.
In just a moment, we'll find out just how much trouble Dr. Watson does have in waking up. But first, have you noticed how men are taking a greater interest in their appearance lately? Competition today is keener than ever. And I'm sure you'll agree one of the greatest assets to a man's appearance is well-groomed hair. So, men, let me give you this tip about Kreml Hair Tonic. and why it's preferred by so many of America's most successful and prosperous executives. Kreml, Kreml, keeps dry, ruffled hair neatly in place all day long. It gives it such a handsome, healthy-looking luster, too. Yet Kreml never leaves hair with that offensive, cheap, greasy look. It never leaves hair and scalp full of sticky goo, which feels so dirty. Kreml always looks and smells so clean on both hair and scalp. It gives hair that attractive, natural he-man look, which certainly hits the jackpot with the ladies. And don't forget, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Let me repeat, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. It makes hair feel softer, easier to manage. At the same time, it removes dandruff flakes and makes the scalp feel so clean and invigorated. Men, use Kreml hair tonic daily. And see if you don't say, my hair never looked better. My scalp never felt cleaner. Well, Dr. Watson, you certainly left me teetering on the edge of my chair. We left you drugged in the schoolmaster's study. What happened next?
Well, my first conscious recollection was to find myself with a violent pounding in my head, lying in a small clearing between some trees. Bending over me with a look of deep concern on his face was my old friend Sherlock Holmes.
Watson. Watson, old chap, are you all right?
Yes, I've got a frightful headache, Holmes. What are you doing there in those clothes with that droopy moustache?
It proved a good enough passport to secure me employment at the stables here.
Well, how did you get me out of Ponsonby's study?
The stables command an excellent view of the school building. Your long absence worried me, and when Dr. Ponsonby finally appeared, alone, I became suspicious. So I took advantage of his absence, slipped through the study window, and rescued you.
Well, thank heavens you did. He gave me drugged wine. It's a funny thing, Holmes. I was probably delirious, but I swear that I saw a woman's handbag on the table. A pink and black beaded bag, and it was alive and moved.
Great heavens! That confirms my worst suspicions.
Did you see it too?
No, it wasn't there when I came in. Somebody, probably Mrs. Arkwright, removed it. Watson, you were never closer to death. I blame myself for having allowed you to tackle Dr. Ponsonby alone.
Don't reproach yourself, Holmes. Where's Lord Manders?
Waiting at the inn for an answer to my telegram. He is to meet us later behind the lodge gates.
What's our next move?
To go to the stables, dirty you up a bit and get your change of clothes. Then we'll return to the attack. There's desperate work ahead of us.
Here, this way, sir.
What, my man?
Don't look so alarmed, Lord Manders.
Dr. Watson, I wouldn't have recognized you. What's happened?
Trouble. I had to assume a disguise, too. You brought an answer to Holmes's telegram?
Yes, in my pocket. Where is he?
He went over to the main school building and asked me to...
Other things that the second cook, an acidulated woman of dubious charms, is most susceptible to flattery. Over a glass of stout, she quite inadvertently gave me 3 vital clues.
What were they?
Firstly, that all 5 of the unfortunate boys died in the same small room. Secondly, that fatal room is directly under the room of Mrs. Arkwright.
And she's capable of anything, if you ask me.
The third clue makes our next step an urgent one. A boy by the name of Carruthers Minor was moved into that room yesterday. He's supposed to have an extremely bad cold. Dr. Ponsonby is afraid it might turn into pneumonia.
Good heavens.
Exactly, Watson. I suggest we lose no time in visiting Carruthers Minor. Though I'm sure Dr. Ponsonby would consider it unethical, this is one occasion when another doctor's opinion is absolutely vital. There, Carruthers. This is Dr. Watson. He's come to make you well.
You can't make me well. Dr. Ponsonby says I've got pneumonia.
Oh, nonsense, my dear boy. You've got a slight cold, that's all.
If Dr. Ponsonby says I've got pneumonia's what I've got.
Nothing of the kind, my boy. Nothing of the kind.
Watson, you notice this bed is anchored to the floor? It can't be moved. What does that suggest you?
Again, it reminds me of Stoke Moran and Dr. Rylott. But I don't see any bell pull.
No, Watson. No bell rope is needed, because no murderous snake is involved in this plot. But look up there. directly above the bed.
Small trapdoor.
Leading from Mrs. Arkwright's room. Now the whole picture's clear. The trapdoor, the strange marks on the dead boys, the beaded bag that you saw.
What was that?
I don't know. Lord Manders is standing guard in the hallway.
It's Dr. Ponsonby. He's come to look at my pneumonia.
Mrs. Arkwright.
I know you were expecting Lord Manders. He's lying in the hallway. He was looking in the wrong direction. Unfortunately for him.
Don't let Mrs. Arkwright come near me. Don't let her.
Mrs. Arkwright, I'd put that revolver away if I were you. I doubt if you know how to handle it.
I assure you that I do. Having used the butt end of it on your friend so successfully should prove that fact.
Grab her, Watson.
Right, Joel.
Get away from me.
Drop that revolver, Mrs. Arkwright.
That's right. Let the old dog have it.
Drop that revolver. Do you hear me? That's better. I say, Holmes, she's fainted.
Good. Help me carry her up to a room.
Well, what about young Carruthers and Lord Manders?
We must remove them to a place of safety, and then, Watson, all that remains is to call on the giggling Dr. Ponsonby.
It's very dark in here, Holmes. I don't like this at all.
Quiet. Somebody's coming. Good evening, Dr. Ponsonby. Let me light your desk lamp for you.
You startled me. Who are you? What are you doing in my study?
My name is Sherlock Holmes. Dr. Watson, you've already met.
Yes, we've met, you scoundrel.
Oh, yes, my friend the Scotsman. I was expecting you both. By the way, please put that revolver away. Firearms make me nervous.
Dr. Ponsonby, I know how those 5 boys were murdered. I would venture the opinion that you once spent some time for the sake of your health in America. In Arizona Territory, I'd say.
I wonder what makes you think that, Mr. Holmes. I've never been in America in my life.
And yet I'm certain that someone here spent some time in the vicinity of the Gila River.
Well, I understand that Mrs. Arkwright was in America a few years ago.
Mrs. Arkwright? Dr. Ponsonby, is it possible you're hoping to transfer our suspicions to your accomplice?
My accomplice? You talk in riddles, Mr. Holmes. It's most confusing.
Then shall we be more specific? You consider Carruthers Minor to be quite ill, I understand.
Oh, yes, I'm dreadfully worried about him.
Then let me tell you, Dr. Ponsonby, that I examined the boy only a few minutes ago, and as a medical man, I say that he only has a slight cold.
Then obviously we disagree in our diagnosis, Dr. Watson. After all, you're just a general practitioner, whereas I specialize...
Yes, we know what you specialize in.
Gentlemen, I suggest the 3 of us go over to Carruthers' room and hold a consultation. It's just possible that his health has taken a sudden turn for the better.
But the bed's empty. Carruthers Minor has gone.
Yes, Dr. Ponsonby. And suppose you take his place.
All right, I've got him, Holmes. Leave me alone. What are you going to do?
Lash you to this bed and see if you can stomach your own filthy medicine.
This is outrageous.
Of course. I thought that if we were to reconstruct your crimes with you as the victim, we might persuade you to confess.
Mrs. Arkwright! Mrs. Arkwright, help!
I'm afraid she can't help you. She's in her room with the door locked from the outside.
There we are, Holmes. He's lashed up so that he can't move.
But you don't understand. Mrs. Arkwright has her instructions. You're...
Great heavens! What was that?
Mrs. Arkwright. It came from the room above. Come on, Watson. Quick, up the stairs.
She's fainted again.
Feel her pulse.
I was just going to... Holmes, there is no pulse. She's dead.
The poison works fast. Observe those marks on her wrist.
Looks as if some animal had bitten it.
It has. And that means the animal's loose in this room.
Great heavens.
Somehow it must have escaped from its cage and turned on her. Guard the door, Watson. Our lives are not safe until we've found this monster.
I don't understand.
Look. Look! Under that washstand there.
Good heavens, it's that beaded handbag again. And it's moving.
Give me your walking stick, Watson.
Here.
There. This diabolical creature's done enough damage for one lifetime.
It's dead, Holmes, but what in thunder is it? It looks like some sort of lizard. It's all pink and covered all over with black scales. That's what made me think it was a handbag. But I've never seen a lizard as large as that.
Of course you haven't. So let me introduce you to the peculiar villain of this piece. His name is Heloderma suspectum, better known as the Gila monster, indigenous to the Gila River in America.
I've never seen anything like it before. How on earth did you recognize it, Holmes?
When Mr. Coffin, the undertaker, mentioned those strange marks on the dead boys, I was reminded of an article I'd read recently on venomous lizards.
So that telegram you sent
was to the Museum of Natural History. Their answer confirmed my suspicions. The Gila monster's bite produces almost instantaneous death, and yet it's a poison that would be extremely hard to identify. The fixed bed in the room below us, the trap door directly above it in this room, and the help of an unscrupulous accomplice like Mrs. Arkwright makes the rest of the picture very clear.
And now that the monster's dead, how are you going to frighten Dr. Ponsonby into a confession?
Dr. Ponsonby need not know the animal's dead. Examine the floor, Watson. See if you can find that trap door.
Right you are, Holmes.
Meanwhile, I'll see if I can find some cord or string. Uh-huh. Here's a ball of twine on the dressing table, placed there for use in the intended murder of Carruthers Minor, no doubt.
Found the trap, Holmes. There's a ring here in the floor, and a section of the carpet's been cut out.
Good. And now to attach the twine to the body of the Gila monster. So. All right, Watson. Open the trap door.
Very well, Holmes.
Well, Dr. Ponsonby, have you changed your mind?
Mrs. Arkwright! Mrs. Arkwright!
She is dead, Dr. Ponsonby. Your Gila monster turned on her.
No! No!
I'm going to lower the animal, Watson. There we are.
No, get away from me! Just a few more feet will do the trick, Holmes.
Yes. There.
Take it away! I'll tell you anything! Everything!
You'll sign a confession?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, yes, I will! Just take that beast away and I'll sign anything!
We'll be down, Dr. Ponsonby.
Well, Holmes, thank heavens that's done with. What a shocking affair.
Yes, Watson. But not without a note of poetic justice.
What do you mean?
Well, isn't it poetic justice that a dead reptile should be instrumental in bringing a live one to the gallows?
Quite a gruesome finale, Dr. Watson.
It certainly was, Mr. Bell. All in all, one of the most unpleasant adventures that Holmes and I ever encountered.
In just a moment, Dr. Watson will be back to tell us about next week's story. Girls, how would you like a thrilling new experience? Then just listen to how beautiful Powers models glamour bathe their hair.
We certainly were thrilled to discover the amazing beautifying action of Kreml shampoo. It actually glamour bathes each tiny strand of hair and leaves hair sparkling for days with natural glossy luster.
And Kreml shampoo is so mild and gentle. It positively contains no harsh caustics or chemicals. Instead, it has a beneficial oil base which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle.
Oh, and don't forget how its luxurious active foam penetrates right to the scalp and removes all loose dandruff as well as the dirt.
Girls, why not follow the advice of these $1 million Powers models and glamour bathe your hair with beautifying Kreml shampoo? It takes only 10 minutes right at home. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, how about next week?
Well, let me see. Next week, I think I'll tell you the adventure of the genuine Garnerius, in which Holmes solved the mystery of Drenko, the famous violinist, who was found dead in a locked room clutching a suicide note, but who nevertheless had been murdered.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Speckled Band. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures, Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the genuine Garnerius. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, Nigel Bruce's Scottish accent was very well done and a highlight of this episode. The plot actually threw me a bit. I really, at the start of it, I was really into the plot. I was kind of disappointed when we got to the end, and it basically turned out to be a rehash of the Speckled Band. Nothing against the Speckled Band. Fantastic Sherlock Holmes story. But I'm not sure reusing the whole solution with just a few slight modifications work too well here. We turn now to listener comments. I've begun a 3-part post on the top 10 best episodes of Columbo over on the blog. Jack comments, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of your list. For my money, the NBC run of Columbo is the best detective series TV has ever presented. Peter Falk is excellent, and the stable of guest murderers rarely disappoints. I'm not crazy about the ABC run either. I think the problems were weaker guest stars and stories padded to fit the 2-hour runtime. Guillotine is a high point. The other from ABC, I would say, hits the heights of the original series is Agenda for Murder with Patrick McGoohan. Well, thanks so much, Jack, and I just actually happen to have that episode on a DVD I got from Netflix, so I'm going to be looking forward to watching that. Thanks so much for the recommendation. Larry said, just got the app. Thanks again for providing this great wholesome entertainment. I ran through your Dragnet series a few years ago. I found this recently old-time radio is a jewel of our history. Thanks again. Well, thanks so much, Larry, and I hope you enjoy the app. Now available for your iPhone, iPod, and your Android phone. And we have a comment here from Tom, says one who actually sent us a very nice tip. We will be sending along to him our premium access information, as we do to everyone who sends the show a tip of $7 or more. He says, wonderful podcast, Adam, and I'm finally getting used to your accent. Tom in Boulder, Colorado. What is this accent people keep talking about? Thanks, Tom. And that'll do it for now. We'll be back with tomorrow's episode of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. Before we do get started with today's program, I want to remind you about Johnny Dollar Air. Well, wherever you're flying in the world, whether you're going to Manila on business or going to Orlando for pleasure, JohnnyDollarAir.com can help you get a good price on your travel cost. Whether it's hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, cruises, or even more, JohnnyDollarAir.com, which is powered by Priceline, allows you to either name your own price or choose from several published specials. Plus, a portion of your purchase goes to support the great detectives of old-time radio at no cost to you. So go to JohnnyDollarAir.com for your travel needs. Now let's get into today's episode, The Woodward Manilla Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Ralph Wheaton again, Johnny. I'm glad I caught you before you left.
Well, it's almost 2 hours before my plane leaves. What's on your mind?
The cable just came in from Manila. The amount taken in the burglary is roughly $75,000.
That's dollars and not pesos.
Dollars, yeah. They mentioned that a clerk has dropped out of sight.
Native?
An American. Named Blake. Daniel Blake.
Blake, all right.
Now, that's all so far. What's your hotel in Manila? Do you know yet?
Yeah, the Hotel Tondo.
Tondo, good. I'll get word to you there if I learn anything you can use. Well, good luck on the trip.
Edmund O'Brien in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Woodward Manilla matter. Expense account item 1, $1,850 airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Manila.
Flight number 103. Will you go to the ticket office, please?
Passenger Dollar from incoming CAL.
My name is Dollar. I was being paged.
Oh, yes. These gentlemen are waiting for you. This is Mr. Dollar, sir.
Oh, yes. I'm Floyd McDonald, Mr. Dollar, local manager of the Woodward Company.
Oh, how are you, sir?
And this is Irving Morgan, my assistant.
Morgan?
Glad to meet you. I've made arrangements to have your luggage sent to your hotel if you'd like to do it that way. Irving and I can drive you right in.
Fine. That's darn nice of you.
Well, I know how it is. At least I don't want to bother with details after a long flight like that.
You'll give me your luggage check, sir?
Oh, yeah. I'm right here.
Thank you.
Well, that's all, I think. The car's right outside. We can give you the details of the burglary on the way in.
He told me very little that I didn't already know. The store he managed, one of Manilla's largest hardware stores, was part of the American-owned Woodward chain. He had discovered the loss of the $75,000 himself Monday morning when he'd entered his office and found the safe open.
Naturally, I feel very badly about it. But everything that can be done is being done.
I don't know who the main office is blaming it on, but I think you'll find that Floyd and I were anything but careless. We've got 5 years without a loss behind us to prove that.
And it only takes one failure to ruin a success, Irving.
There's $75,000. Do I understand that it was all American currency?
No, it was made up of pesos, too. I stated the amount in dollars and cents when I reported the loss.
Were you in the habit of keeping as much money as that in your office safe?
Oh, it wasn't my idea, or to my liking. It was because of a company rule. They were worried about conditions on this side of the Pacific and ordered us to stop banking our cash here. Instead of the usual yearly transfer of our money, it has been going to the States once a month.
They didn't save much this time. What about this clerk, Dan Blake?
Oh, don't get me started on him.
No, there's nothing proved yet, Irving.
What is it going to take to open your eyes, Floyd?
We don't agree on just what to think about Dan, Mr. Dollar. In spite of the circumstances, I find it almost impossible to believe that Dan would do this to me.
Could he have done it?
Of course he could. He had access to the office, and he could have memorized the combination of the safe.
Yes, that's true, but I can't forget that he was a very good friend of mine. He was like a son to me.
Was he in any trouble that you know of? Owe any money?
I hadn't heard of anything.
He's been out of sight 4 days now. What kind of a search has been made for him?
Well, I understand that the police have been working very hard. They class him as the chief suspect, too.
Yes, but you've got to realize that the Philippines aren't like the States, Dollar. It's not hard to drop out of sight here. It's a big world.
I know. I just watched a lot of it pass by. Well, as soon as my luggage arrives and I can get into a fresh suit, I'll contact the police, see what they've got. Expense count item 2, $350, including tip. A pitcher of gimlets delivered to my room. While I waited for my baggage to arrive, I relaxed in front of the window. My hotel was 2 blocks from Manilla's Great Bay in a section called El Puerto. From my room, I could see enough of the Orient, the native craft working the harbor, to give even a common hardware store burglary an atmosphere of intrigue. Expense account item 3, 80 cents cab fare to police headquarters, where I was shunted into a side office to wait for the sergeant in charge of the Woodward case. He finally showed up.
Sergeant Malvar, you wait for me?
Yes, my name is Dollar.
I know. You come to talk of my burglary. You are a policeman?
Well, not quite. I've been hired by an insurance company to learn what I can about it.
What do you wish to learn from me?
Whether you've made any progress? You gotten any place with your search for Dan Blake?
Dan Blake? No, I do not look for him now.
Oh, you don't?
No. I have captured the thief.
Oh? Who is it?
Miguel No Soledad.
You've recovered the money?
He will not say where it is yet, but he will say tomorrow, maybe.
What evidence do you have, Sergeant?
He cannot say where he was that night of the burglary.
Is that all?
He's by profession a thief. He was arrested while he was robbing another store last night.
Did he speak English?
Oh, yes.
Wonder if I could talk to him. Maybe he's afraid to confess to the police, and maybe I can get him to talk.
All right. You come with me. You do not stay long, only 5 minutes.
That's good enough. Miguel?
Who are you? Why you come here?
How old are you, Miguel?
50.
Where do you work?
No work. Get hurt in bombing, no work.
You have any children?
See? 2 daughters.
Where do they work? Does either one work at the Woodward hardware store?
Work in prison. Both work in prison.
Sergeant Malvar says you stole some money from the Woodward store.
No.
You'll make it easier for yourself if you tell the truth and give up the money.
I don't got money. If I got money, then why I steal 5 pesos from other place? Why? You tell police why. If I got lots of money, why steal a little more? Why? Because I don't got lots of money.
It's good enough for me, Miguel. Sorry I took up your time.
You do not stay long?
I think he wants to sleep.
What would he say to you?
That he didn't do it. And if he had, you wouldn't have caught him stealing 5 pesos because he wouldn't have needed it.
He need a kick in the head for his lying.
Do you have any connection between him and the Woodward place?
He tell you he got 2 daughters in prison?
Yeah.
He lied. They come out, but they do not go back to him because he steal their money.
Oh? The daughters have connection with Woodward?
Connection? If we need connection, we find one all right. Tomorrow, maybe?
I had an idea Sergeant Malvar's philosophy reasoned that it was a lot easier to grill the wizened little prisoner than it would be to continue to search for Blake. But I left him to his own devices and cabbed to the Woodward store. I was told that neither Floyd McDonald nor Morgan were in, but that a secretary would help me.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Dollar? I knew that you were coming out. My name is Charlotte Page. Floyd McDonald's my uncle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He had to go out to Ermita with an order for a house that's being built there. Can I help you in any way?
I wanted to look at the office, find out where the safe was.
Oh, I can show you.
I'll check this door first. Good stout lock. Have to have a key. Is this the only entrance?
Well, the one window there, but it's in a blank wall. Mr. Dollar, I know you've been here only a little while, but have you learned anything?
Not much, but all of it looks bad for Dan Blake.
Just can't believe that Dan would do a thing like this.
How well did you know him?
Evidently not well at all if he stole the money. We're the same age, found something in common working here together. I've had dinner with him occasionally, going to the beach.
Know if he was in any kind of trouble, debts or anything?
No, I thought he was very happy and comfortable here. He seemed to be.
Where's this safe now?
It's under the rug near the desk. You have to lift the corner of the rug.
Did Dan Blake know where it was?
Oh, yes. Everybody trusted him. He'd been here for years.
Did he know the combination?
No, I don't think so. Uncle Floyd handled the cash.
Could he have memorized it?
Well, I don't know that either. I hadn't given it a thought.
I guess we can put the rug back. Oh, I forgot to get Blake's address from the police. You happen to know what it is?
Oh, I've gotten it. Somewhere on Impolite. I can find it on the payroll. It should be right here. It'd be too easy to find him there, wouldn't it, Mr. Dollar?
Much too easy. Thought I might pick up a crumb or two.
Oh, here it is. 307 Sampolite Street.
307 Sampolite. Thanks. Tell Mr. McDonald I was here, would you please? And I'll be in touch tomorrow. There was a fair biography of Dan Blake in his rooms. I learned that he was born in Duluth, Minnesota, 26 years ago, that his father wrote him occasionally, that he had sailed with the Merchant Marine during the war and had made a few inter-island trips after that. Floyd McDonald had said he was a student of the Philippines, and that was borne out by photographs and receipts from steamer and airlines. I made a list of the places he'd visited, but that was all I could do for that day. It wasn't until the next morning that I went to police headquarters and waited again for Sergeant Malvar.
You come back again. We do very good without your help.
Well, pardon me. I don't want to butt in. I just wondered if you knew that Dan Blake spent a lot of time learning these items.
Oh?
Do you know that he'd spent some time in San Jose on Mindoro, on Marinduque, and in Palo and Leyte?
I did not know.
Well, it might pay you to check those places. There are more, too. From here, clear down to Mindanao.
The search is finished.
Huh? What do you mean?
Dan Blake has been found. He was adrift in a dugout on Tayabas Bay. He was taken aboard a ship, and then he died.
What killed him?
He was shot many times.
What about the money?
It has not been found. Not yet.
Sure, but maybe tomorrow.
We'll return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. With winter in the wind, driving becomes more hazardous every day. Not as much for you in your car as for the people walking across the street or along the edges of a highway. A shoe touches a tiny strip of ice. Someone loses his balance, falls in the wrong direction, and there is sudden death. Check your car carefully. Make sure your brakes are good. Make sure your tires have a heavy tread. Check your steering wheel. Someone's life may depend upon the efficiency of your automobile, upon the care of your driving. Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Sergeant Malva, Manilla Police, was again taking his inimitable approach to a subject, believing what he wanted to believe. When I asked him how he knew the body was that of Dan Blake, he told me the ship captain who had picked him up said so. How did he know? The man had mentioned the name before he died. That was all, and it wasn't enough for me. I put in a call for Floyd McDonald, the Woodward company manager.
Mr. McDonald's office?
This is Johnny Dollar. Is Mr. McDonald there?
Well, no, he stepped out for a moment. This is Charlotte. Is there anything I can do?
I'm calling from police headquarters. They have a body down here.
A body?
Picked up by a ship someplace. They claim it's Dan Blake, but there wasn't any identification on him. You tell Mr. McDonald I want him to come and look at him?
Yes. He should be back any minute. I'll tell him to come right down.
When did this develop, Dollar? And why wasn't I notified?
Nobody was notified, Mr. McDonald. Sergeant Malva was playing it close to his chest.
And where is Sergeant Malva?
Didn't tell me where he was going. He left word that we could look at the body, and he left. My name is Dollar, Corporal.
See, you go in.
Thanks. I know this is unpleasant, but we have to find out.
Good Lord.
Is this Dan Blake?
Yes. Yes, it's Dan. Cover him up, please. Where did they find him?
In a dugout canoe. Someplace called Abbotts Bay, I think.
Yes. Abbotts Bay, southwest of here. Who found him?
A man by the name of Kovar. He's the captain of an inter-island schooner.
Could we leave here?
Yeah, sure.
What happened, do you know?
Well, not firsthand. He's been shot in the back 4 times. He was alive for a short time after Captain Kovar picked him up. The money has not been found.
I see. Then there's no explanation yet.
Not that I know of. The schooner is anchored offshore just south of the Pasig River. You know where that is?
Yes.
I'd like to talk to this Kovar. I guess I can hire a boat to take me out there, huh?
I'll drive you down to the docks. As a matter of fact, I'd like to go with you.
Well, it's a good idea if you have the time.
Well, I'll take the time. That's my car there.
That must be the boat.
The Sea Nymph. Is that the name?
That's it. Skipper, that's the one there. The Sea Nymph. That's a little precious for a wreck like that, isn't it?
Some are even worse. I don't know how they stay afloat. There's somebody on deck.
What do you want?
You Captain Kovar?
Yeah, that's right.
I want to talk to you about the body you brought in.
You the police?
No, this man is McDonald. Dan Blake worked for him.
Hey, Copper, get a line on the shore boat. Okay, come on board. I'll put the ladder over for you. Watch it now. She's got quite a pitch today.
Go ahead. Right.
Have you got it?
Yep. My name is Dollar, Captain. I'm working on the burglary for an insurance company.
Come on in the cabin. I'd like to learn about that burglary. All that police sergeant would tell me is that I got the money and I better give it to him. Well, that'll take some doing. Take the chairs, you two. I'll take the bunk here. Well, now, what's this all about?
There's a little over $75,000 missing.
He didn't have anything when I picked him up.
He was in a dugout canoe?
That's right. Looked like a Moro craft to me. Oh, I see what you mean. No, it was empty. I looked it over.
How long did he live?
Oh, 15, 20 minutes. Maybe not that long. I don't think taking him aboard did any good for him, but I didn't know.
Did he say anything about the shooting?
Nothing that I could understand.
What did he say?
I told you I couldn't understand. Just some noise.
But you were able to understand his
You're
name.
beginning to sound like that police sergeant, mister, and I don't like it. I thought I was doing right when I brought that boy
Now,
in.
wait a minute, Captain.
I wish I'd left him there. Police right now are getting papers to search my ship, and now you stop.
I'm not making any accusations, but you were the last person to see him alive. I'm interested in what he said.
Well, he said Blake. Blake. That's all I can understand. To tell you the truth, I wish I'd left him there. But you know what I think?
What's that?
If he went from Manila to someplace on Tayabas Bay where he had his dugout, plenty could happen. It's about 60 miles. You heard about our Hucks, our rebels?
Yeah, I've read about them.
They're a bunch of cutthroat scum, and they don't think twice when they get the chance to kill an American. $75,000, so much the better.
What do you think, Mr. McDonald?
Well, certainly a possibility. The Hucks are active.
I guess it's not a chance of putting our finger on it. That's what happened.
Not a chance.
All right. Then let's leave that possibility until the last. I wasn't sure of Captain Kovar. If he was telling the truth, he was doing so without tact. And if he was lying, he seemed to be doing that with complete confidence. I didn't bother questioning his crew. I knew that Sergeant Malva, if he hadn't already, would take care of them when he returned to search the schooner. I spent the rest of the morning and part of the afternoon in routine legwork on the case, and at 4 o'clock, I got the sergeant's report.
There was nothing. From one end of the ship to the other end, my men look. I know it is there, but it was not found.
Did you talk to the crew?
Yes, I talk myself to them. They do not hear Dan Blake say anything. The captain is the only one who hear him.
What have you done with him?
What is there I can do? Nothing. I leave his ship, and that is all.
Huh? What now?
But now? There is nothing now. So the Hawks killed him. Then that is all.
I learned a few things about Floyd McDonald this afternoon.
So?
He's up to his neck in debt. Did you know that?
So?
I don't know about the Philippines, but in the States, it's an old pitch to have a patsy found full of bullets, but without the missing money.
I do not know what you say.
And maybe it looks like Dan Blake is the thief when somebody else is. I haven't been able to find a reason for the kid to have done this. Now I find that McDonald needed money.
I did not know that. It would not be wise for me to question him. In Manila, Mr. McDonald is not the man to suspect. He is known as a man with honor.
Yeah, so I gathered. That's probably why he could get so far into debt. I didn't think it would be wise at that point for me to question Floyd McDonald either. I waited until his store closed that evening and until his assistant, Irving Morgan, had gotten to his home. Good evening, Mr. Morgan.
Oh, hello, Mr. Dollar. I've been thinking about you. Come on in.
Thanks.
Well, how's it going?
It's hard to tell.
From what I hear, the money is gone. It's good.
Did McDonald tell you that?
Yeah, isn't that right?
Maybe. I don't make it a habit to go around switching the values of national problems, but it's occurred to me that these Hucks could be pretty handy people to have around.
I don't get you.
Well, when a killing outside the city can't be explained any other way, it's marked off to the Hucks.
Oh, you don't think they shot Blake?
I'm not as sure of it as everybody else seems to be.
Just what do you mean, Mr. Dollar?
How much did you know about McDonald's personal life?
Well, I see him socially, if that's what you mean. We're good friends.
Does he owe you any money?
Seems to me that's a very personal question.
I have to ask that kind once in a while. I've learned that McDonald owes a lot of money to a lot of people. 1,000 here, 1,500 there. Loans, gambling debts.
He'd be ruined if this became common knowledge, Mr. Dollar. He'd lose his position, everything.
How far do you think McDonald would go to save himself?
Are you telling me you think Floyd arranged this death?
Well, it's something to think about.
And killed Blake to Oh, no, he didn't.
You're sure of that?
He couldn't have. He's not that kind of man. He might be desperate, yes, but he'd never do a thing like that.
Would he be at home now?
I don't think so. It's only 7. He usually has dinner at the club.
What club?
The Merchants Club. Mr. Dollar, don't question him down there. Wait until he gets home.
All right. I can count on you not to tell him I'm waiting for him.
You certainly can. I want to stay as far away from this thing as possible.
An hour and a half later, a cab dropped me in front of Floyd McDonald's home. The residence, at least, was a picture of propriety. Set in a fashionable suburb, it was within earshot of a bellboy somewhere in the bay. I followed a sidewalk across a neatly hedged lawn, and halfway to the house, I stopped to watch a man come out of the front door. Captain Culver.
Who is it? What do you want?
What are you doing here?
Forget it.
I can't. What's your part in this?
Never mind. Forget you saw me.
Come here. Culver.
Get off.
Get along. Culver. Culver.
Now you...
I didn't expect this. You live here?
Yes.
I came to talk to your uncle. Is he here?
No.
And Captain Culver was with you.
Yes, Captain Culver was with me.
You're hurt. What did he do to you?
He hit me.
Why?
Because he's insane. He thought he had to hit me. He wanted the money. Gave it to him.
You gave him the money?
Yes, all of it. Every penny of it. I didn't want it anymore.
That's not what I mean. You were holding the money for Dan Blake.
For us. We were in it together.
Culver learned it from Dan before he died.
Yes. Dan kept calling for me while he was dying. So this Culver thought he could blackmail me. He thought I gave him the money to keep him quiet. Dan and I were trying to get away from this place. Have a life of our own. We tried. Now, I don't care what happens to me.
Where's the telephone?
Through that door, but you don't have to call. I'll go to the police by myself. I just wanted to wait till Uncle Floyd got home.
I'm not worried about your personal problems, Charlotte. That's not my job. Culver and that $75,000 is all I want. I tried not to waste a minute, but time slipped by. 15 minutes on the phone, 25 to get back to Manila. When Sergeant Alva finally arrived at the harbor police dock, a boat was ready for us.
Come as quick as I can. His ship is not at anchor?
I checked it. He moved out about 20 minutes ago.
We go then. Kami ay handa na. It's a dark night.
How do we don't find him?
He do not get out of the bay. Boats near Corregidor are right now waiting. The girl, she was an accomplice?
She held the money, so if he was picked up, you couldn't prove possession. She was going to meet him later.
The hooks shot him?
That's what Culver told her.
So? But the hooks do not kill him.
What's that?
Police doctor. He say bullets do not kill Blake. Blake choked to death. Go on, choke him to learn the secret.
I think we can prove that, Sergeant. We get any more speed out of this thing? Come on, let's get inside out of the spray. Isn't much when a schooner with auxiliary power is matched against a police boat. With our speed and the beams from 4 searchlights fanning out around us, we covered every possible course that Culver could have set. It took us less than 30 minutes.
Come on! Already. We go outside.
Yep, there she is.
Now I show these men we are strong. But in more! He fired in front of me.
That's slowing him down.
He cursed me, that man, when I shot his ship. Now Sergeant Malvari cursed back. But in more! Crazy? Got one of our lights.
We'd better douse the others before he snipes them.
But in more! Aguila! Crazy.
That depends on whether the doctors works for him or not. All I can see is his weight now.
Do not get away. Tayo pamanik sa barko nila! We move in right now. Go on board.
He's shouting something.
Captain, come on! There is no use to fight. We come aboard!
Barbara, get that engine started. Get it started! crew's turning on him.
Walk, Walker. All right, Joe. Walk.
He's got to be stopped, Sergeant. Have your men stop him. Come on, there. He's running forward.
You are my witness. The officials do not like the killing of accidentals.
I'm your witness. Now, if you'll put me aboard, I'd like to find that stolen money. Expense account item 3, $230, blanket item covering hotel, transportation, etc. Item 4, same as item 1. Expense account total, $3,940. Remarks? After the arrest of Charlotte Page, the stolen funds were counted in front of witnesses, and the amount was not as large as was claimed by McDonald. I don't know what you can do about it. Everybody seems to be out after something these days. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dodd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Bill Conrad, Lillian Baeff, Robert Griffin, Bill Johnstone, Hy Everback, and Jack Crucian. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Coverly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
You can sing it again on CBS tonight for a whole hour of fun-packed, music-packed entertainment. And maybe Dan Seymour will be calling you to solve one of the tuneful little riddle songs that lead to a chance at radio's largest cash jackpot, $5,000, plus $10,000 more in wonderful prizes. Alan Dale, Judy Lynn, Bob Howard, the Riddlers, and Ray Bloch Orchestra are on hand to sing and play the riddle tunes leading up to Dan Seymour's coast-to-coast calls. Be listening again later tonight when Sing It Again comes along on most of these same CBS stations. Now stay tuned for Von Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where you laugh with Lucille Ball and My Favorite Husband on Saturday nights, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. If you're wondering, the Hawks were a group of native people that rebelled against the government of the Philippines in the post-war era. One thing I did find kind of interesting about this episode that I don't think we've seen in other Johnny Dollars is police that were not particularly helpful or competent throughout most of the episode. Clearly, Johnny didn't think a whole lot of the police inspector, and the police inspector didn't give him a whole lot of reason to. And that's an interesting dynamic, not something I've really seen a whole lot in Johnny Dollar. Well, we do have one comment. This comes from a larger email where he was talking about the Superman series. Joel writes, I'm also enjoying your Great Detectives podcast site. Valentine is new to me, and Nick and Nora are always fun. Edmund O'Brien is a great Johnny Dollar. Thanks for making so much entertainment available for my late night bedtime listening on my iPhone. It's like being a kid again, listening in bed on the Crosley. Well, thanks so much. Glad to help. Well, that'll do it for this week. We'll be back on Monday with the adventures of the Abbott. In the meantime, Abbotts. In the meantime, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net and follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.